The Intergalactic Soul, the Honorable Brother, the Revolutionary yourself, Darius Lockhart, and I'm here to tell you to watch Power Bombshells every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. That's right, every Sunday at 1 p.m., and that's on time, every time, because when we stand together, what time is it? That's right, it's nation time.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 131 of Power Bombshells. I am Sam and that is Mel, and we are just two broads talking about the wrestling we watch. We have Brad, who is back with us after being on vacation and has made his triumphant return to the chat. So we are glad to see him here. And Daza was pretty close.
You are actually pretty close, Daza. I mean, this could definitely work. I mean, I could make it work as a wizard hat. So Sam and we saw that comment come up right before we came on air, and we're laughing because it's like, that's pretty dang close. I mean, I think we'll give that one to Daza.
I think so.
We kind of have to.
Close. Yeah.
He's been noticing me tweeting about Ren Fair. It's Ren Fair season. So, like I told Sam, it's I'm going to be keeping my eyes out for the old Ren Fair hats. Get them from the indie vendors. Get some fun ones.
Yeah, there you go.
Hitting a couple of fairs this year, so get to see my friendos. I'm excited. And that will not interfere with our show.
Go ahead. Here from a certain angle, it looks like a wizard hat.
Yeah, see, I think we totally were like, I think we're gonna give you this one.
Yeah, I think we have to.
I think we really have to give it.
That's pretty damn close.
He
almost nailed it. Like I would say,
almost.
8 out of 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, really close. I mean, definitely on the high scale. That's like the closest I think anyone's coming at that I can remember.
Yeah, I think so, or at least in quite a while.
In quite some time. So yes. Excellent. See, we're off to a good start.
That just bodes well. And also, we'll talk about it again, but this will actually be our first of 2 shows this week, because we will be back here on Saturday for our All Out pre-show. We're still trying to figure out the time because I have to also do some Wrestling Inc. coverage as well. So I will be talking to Mel about that after the show, and we're going to get the time set. But just make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and press the bell so that you get notifications every time we go live, because you'll definitely see it for sure then. And then, of course, we will definitely post it on our social media at Power Bombshells on Twitter and Instagram. We'll definitely post it there for sure. I mean, we may even have a time for you after the show goes off the air, but we'll definitely have a time within the next, as soon as possible. We just got to.
Definitely. It was one of those things I realized Wednesday when I was watching Dynamite.
Right. Yeah, I knew we had one coming up, and then I got my Saturday, and I was like, wait, is it this Saturday? And I was like, no, not this Saturday, next Saturday, because they moved it back a week.
Right. And it messed it up. And I mean, I even realized how much it really did mess it up, and it kind of messes up planning. Because, I mean, I was able to move it easily, but it was one of these things where I was like, I was realizing it as I was sitting there. I was like, holy, he's doing it on a freaking Saturday. I literally out loud, I was like, that's Saturday the 7th, September 7th. God damn it, Tony.
Yeah. It's and so now this will be the first. This pay-per-view will be on Saturday. All pay-per-views will be on Saturdays through I think February. There's through football season, because he has Jags. He has Jags. NFL start. The first game is Thursday. Jags' first game is Sunday. So that's why. So from now until I think February, I believe all pay-per-view, because I think even Grand Slam in Australia, I believe, is on a Saturday. I think when I looked the other day,
I think you're right.
I think it is a Saturday. Right. And then I guess we'll figure out when Revolution. I wonder if they're going to move Revolution to March, because Revolution is typically a February show. It ended up being the first weekend of March this year because of the way it fell. So I'm wondering if they're just going to move it completely to March, since they're doing Grand Slam in Australia in February. I would assume Revolution's going to March, but.
Well, and you got to figure once this deal is done that they are going to be essentially a lot of the talking heads that have said that there will be this many pay-per-views. They wanted more pay-per-views all along. Warner Brothers did. Like, they want that as part of their, essentially the same idea as what WWE is doing.
And as I have been saying, I hope that when this new deal comes through, that means they get rid of Battle of the Belts. Because
it's time. I mean, there's so much ROH content. You don't, it's just not.
Battle of the Belts.
I think out of the times you tell me, what was the stat? It's like one time a belt has changed hands.
Yeah, and then they did the vacant title, the trios titles recently because they ununified them to get them on the Von Erichs and Dustin. And so they did that as a vacant. That was vacant. So, but there's only been one title change, and that was actually, it wasn't a title change. It was I think it was for a vacant title as well, way back at like Battle of the Belts 3. And the very first Battle of the Belts was for the vacant title, TNT title that Cody had.
Oh, that's right.
Because that's when he was suspected to have COVID. And then it was the very first one. Nikki and I were there, and it was Dustin Rhodes versus Sammy Guevara for the vacant TNT title. And then I want to say Scorpio Sky won it at Battle of the Belts 3. And then Battle of the Belts 11 was the vacant title, trios titles that were won. That's how, So I know, because back when Battle of the Belts was announced, AEW had 4 pay-per-views, and WBD wanted something on TV. So they're like, let's do a Saturday night show. It's an hour. Titles will be on the line. We'll do that. And then it's become an afterthought, and it's a contractual obligation show.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's part of the new deal, that means Battle of the Belts is going away, because it's pointless.
Otherwise, if it doesn't go away, they need to turn it into a bigger deal then.
Yeah, I would agree. It's become like the WWE's non-major pay-per-views. There's rarely title changes now. They did have one last night. They did have Bianca and Jade one that I saw that they won the tag team titles back. But rarely most title changes happen on the big pay-per-views now.
And one this weekend, I can't even remember.
This was
Slapshot or something.
No, it was it was Bash in Berlin. It's
Bash in Berlin. That's
the first pay-per-view ever in for WWE paper in Germany that was last night.
That's and then close to Berlin.
And then tonight they're doing is NXT. No Mercy is now an NXT pay-per-view, and that is tonight.
Oh my god!
But so I think the expectation is that Julia comes tonight. Maybe I'm assuming Julia, Stephanie Vacker, who they have not used since she was in Mexico.
Right.
And then Delta is on the way in as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of the 3 or all of the 3 appear tonight. And so
on NXT, like as they're debuting.
Right.
Because they start them there no matter what. Basically.
Yeah, and apparently like a friend of mine who watches NXT regularly was saying that there was one of the women wrestlers was seen talking to somebody. I don't remember if it was off camera or on the phone, and everybody assumed Julia. And she was like, and then like the next day she was like, wait a minute, what if it was Delta? Which could certainly be. So because all 3 of them should be debuting at any time if they don't all 3 show up tonight. So at least the NXT women's division seems to be getting it together. But they treat the NXT books their women a lot better than the main roster does.
I mean, you can speak to that better than me but I don't hear a lot since Rhea and Bayley have basically faded away. It's
no, Rhea's in a big storyline.
She's back,
but she's in they had the really big match. So Judgment Day,
her and Liv Morgan, right? Is that
Judgment Day turned on everybody, and so it's just Damian. It's Damian and Rhea now. They're the Terror Twins. And last night they had a mixed tag match against Dominic and Liv at Bash in Berlin last night that Rhea won. And then they have Bayley since she lost the title, they hadn't been really doing anything with her, but they brought her back out Friday night. And seems like she's getting involved again. But yeah, the women's storylines up there, and I don't even think they remember Liv Morgan has a title. Like the title is a complete afterthought in her storyline that she's been telling for months. She's defended it twice since she won it.
That whole thing seems so. Her and Dominic, it just seemed cringy to me from the outside.
It's super.
Like
it's super
the
cringy.
summaries, like on the podcast that I listen to, because obviously they're covering everything a lot of the time. It's like, eesh.
Yeah.
Not missing anything there. Rewatching.
No, you're not.
Life on the streets instead of partaking of that crap.
Yeah, you're not missing anything there, and it's the same recycled crap, and they don't care about the title at all. They care a little bit more about Nia having the SmackDown title. There was at least the story around that, because it's where Tiffany Stratton is probably going to cash in on her at some point, even though they have an alliance type of thing. So kind of like Tony and Mariah, but not quite, but kind of like those same lines.
Not good.
So it's definitely not as much attention to detail for sure.
Okay, we'll give it that. I shouldn't. I mean, it's not my product. It's not I feel bad for the fans of it, but if they're happy, they're happy.
Right, exactly.
I mean, again, as we've said many times, Sam is getting paid to do this, so
yes,
I have to indulge her a little
again. And that's why yesterday I was not on pay-per-view coverage duty, so I was like, nope, I'll just read the recap that the wonderful Olivia, she typically does the WWE live coverage. I filled in for her last Monday on live coverage for Raw, but she typically does. And so I was like, oh, I know she'll have good information. So I just went and read that. And that's how that way I know going into tomorrow, I know what happened over the weekend. And I'm sure they'll show me 48 packages of what happened. That was the thing. SmackDown was basically a clips show. Like they just show clips to build up the matches for the next night. Like there was just a few wrestling things. Like it was just, I felt like I joked and I was like, this show needs Joe McHale, because this is basically the soup. It's just recapping. I was like, awesome. I would be happy if that was the case, because I love the soup and I love Joel McHale. He's one of my favorites.
Bring the robots, please.
Right. And so I was
just
like,
take this apart, because that would make it
right. So I was like, but yeah, Friday was rough, and I was like, that was we were all like, what is this? We were like, this is just a clip show. And then like the main event was a street fight between Misha and Nia Jax, and it was fine, but like Nia Jax was in regular gear, not in street fight gear. She just came in the ring and stood there, no weapons that she brought out. The match itself was fine. It didn't get a lot of time though, which
they didn't have a street fight with no weapons.
No, they did, but she came to the ring. Like she just came to the ring and was just standing there. Misha came down and had a shopping cart with a German trash can in it, because they were already in Germany.
Perfect. See,
she had other weapons. There were weapons under the ring, but Nia just comes in there and just stand. And they still do that thing where a lot of times the wrestler will come in the ring, they'll go to commercial, a backstage segment, and then come back. Well, and that's what they did. That's what they did here. So Nia's just standing there in her regular gear, no weapons or anything. Like I'm like, you're the champion and you can't come prepared for a street fight. It's like, weird. What do we do? I mean, and of course she won because she's the champion, but yeah, it was just, I'm glad I get paid for it.
I hope the German fans enjoyed it, and that
I hope they did
too.
And the one good segment was the segment I ended up having to cover. It was Cody and Kevin Owens, which was kind of weird, because of just this feud just doesn't really, wasn't really any build for it. It just doesn't work because it's two baby faces, basically. I mean, they played up into the point that Kevin Owens has pretty much turned on all of his friends at some point. That was like the story they were telling. They were hinting at it being Kevin Owens, but it's actually probably going to be Randy Orton is probably going to be the one that turns on Cody, and they were making it look like it was going to be Kevin. And then apparently after the match, they hugged and walked up the ramp together. So there was that. But one thing that was kind of interesting though in the promo is Cody said, in 2015 and 2016, I left and was in rooms that you used to be in, and I get credited a lot for this renaissance that's happening in wrestling. And I think that I probably get more credit than you do, and you probably should get more credit for what you did on the indies. Basically, well, he didn't say on the indies because we don't say that there, but that was the implication. And then he was like, and I think you're jealous. And Kevin was just like, well, I don't know how to respond to that. And then went back to the alleged knee injury he had. But I thought that comment was very interesting, because he obviously hinted at like, why he left and like what he did. And it's true. I mean, Kevin Steen did a lot for the indies and to get it where it was. And he doesn't, and I think he's right. I think Kevin Steen probably doesn't get the recognition he deserves for what he did on the indies prior to going to WWE, and it kind of gets overlooked. Like he's talked about, but not in the same way that other, obviously the Young Bucks are talked about.
He doesn't come up the way Bryan Danielson's legacy does, or even Motor City as much as because Motor City does come up in conversation when you talk about like tag legacy.
It took a long time. It took a very long time. They were.
Well, I know. Also, we are
left out of conversations for years, and it's only been maybe the last 3 or 4 years that people have finally, once they came back to TNA 4 years ago, that's when people were like, hey, we should probably start giving them their flowers and start talking about what they did for modern tag team wrestling and just independent wrestling in general. And then they finally, but for a long time, like they were left out of the conversation because they were not in WWE ever, and they weren't on that big platform.
Well, so that could change. And then what happens then? Because I've had this very talk with people in our Discord a few times, is like, okay, so does that seal the deal then? Did they get in the Hall of Fame now and get their flowers?
I just want them to get paid. I want them to get paid.
Yeah, I want them to get paid.
Yeah,
I want them to be happy, obviously. It makes me wonder because the debate is like, oh, well, they were never in the WWE. Okay, so
I don't
go to
care,
WWE.
But that doesn't. I hate that argument because
I do too. But does that like put them over then? You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, it's the same thing with like Amazing Red is somebody who is often underlooked for what he has done.
Amazing Red completely, like, I forget about Amazing Red because no one talks about Amazing Red. Yeah. No, I hear you. It's pollen. As soon as it stopped being hot, it turned into pollen central here.
Yeah, it's the pollen's it's been a little bit. And I think earlier I was putting makeup on and like kind of inhaled it. And I think like ever since then, my throat has been like, it's been a little like at the back of my throat. No matter how much water I drink.
You see what we do for you people?
That's like... And we're going to do it again on Saturday. So that's 2 times this week that we're going to be chatting a lot for you.
I mean, dude, we run the risk of inhaling our own makeup for you people to bring you the best free content 2 broads can make on a podcast, on a live wrestling podcast. And I'm only being jokey because I know that we have to talk about some bullshit coming up. And
I was just about to say, I guess we can transition into it because we're already
trying to be funny and
we're already on the WWE.
Yeah, well, that's it. Is that we may as well get them.
Head right on into it. So. Yesterday, I didn't even know because I was off. I was on and off Twitter yesterday. I didn't even think about the media scrum. Typically, I will at least try to keep an eye on the WWE media scrum just to see what happens and what is asked. But I was not really thinking about it. Was watching some other stuff and just like doing. And so it was a couple of hours before I had heard about it, and then I saw the video. So after Bash in Berlin, Cody was one of the people that was interviewed, and he was at some point. I have not heard who asked the question yet. I could hear somebody I ask it, but I don't know that they were identified, because that's one thing that happens in both media scrums. Reporters sometimes forget to say their name and their publication. So, and I know that sometimes you aren't thinking about that. That sometimes can be an issue, because then I'm like, well, who asked that? So he was asked about he was asked about the documentary that is coming, the Netflix documentary that is coming out soon. This has been in the works for several years. This was, I think the date that I saw was like 2020. And
it's been in the works for a while. I mean, Dave's been interviewing it like
way before Raw was supposed to even come to Netflix. Like that wasn't even a thought at that time.
No, this was separate. It was totally
like
in the
pandemic era topic.
Yeah,
it's like
you're right.
How this came about. And it's I know was it Brad is it Brad? No, what is his name? Is it? Oh, I just blanked on his name. The guy that does Grantland.
You're talking about Bill Simmons?
Bill Simmons, yes, that's what. I was like, why am I blanking on his name? But yeah, Bill Simmons is involved.
Thank you, Garrett, and the channel.
I just saw his name yesterday, and it left my brain. But yeah, so he's involved with it. So apparently WWE, they're not involved in it as far as like production. I guess they don't necessarily have a say in whatever is in this documentary. We don't know the exact details as far as I know. Maybe I have missed that. But they did interview Vince. They had talked to him. They'd filmed interviews with him. Then he retired because of all the NBA stuff came out. And so they had to change course. They apparently did include all of this is apparently why it was delayed some, is because they had to now figure out how do we tell the story we were telling and then include this information as well.
Right.
Supposedly they have interviewed journalists for this that were involved in breaking the story. I really hope that means the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, because they've been doing
I'm
hoping
that's who they mean, because they definitely need to be included. I'm hoping that's who they mean. I hope it's not somebody else, but we'll find. And then that could also, so it's kind of unclear about what direction this documentary is going to go, because we've seen WWE produce documentaries tell is revisionist history. It tells what they want to tell, which they're
mostly kayfabe.
And so it's shaped wrestling history in a way that fans watch these documentaries, and then people who were watching in real time were like, no, that's WWE's spin on what happened. This is what really happened. So it appears that this documentary will be, I guess, more straightforward, less WWE bias. However, Bill Simmons is also a huge WWE fan. We don't know what his type of bias is going to be going into this, or with the more serious part of the story. So it all remains to be seen exactly how this is gonna, what's included, how they're gonna present it. Everybody's kind of a little timid. We're like, we don't know what to expect. And like there's not been a trailer yet either. It's just been that like the press release and the poster.
Oh, there wasn't a trailer?
No,
maybe?
It was just.
I wonder if was there like a press?
A poster has been released, which somebody pointed out that's not even a wrestling ring; it's a boxing ring that's in the drawing.
Weird, because Garrett and Dave on Friday were talking like they had seen like a trailer.
Maybe they have seen the trailer.
I was gonna say, I wonder if there's a press, because there's a press trailer. But I got a good chuckle about it just because Garrett was like, I feel like I need to take the day this comes out and then the next day off just so I can process it and like make notes and listen. He was like, I feel like I have to like take time off to absorb this one thing, because how are they going to tell this story? Like, So as far as I know, a public trailer has not been released. Okay. I have not seen it. When I read the article from Variety the other day, I didn't, unless I totally missed it. Got an insider thing.
I didn't see a trailer, but perhaps it's out. I just missed it somehow, because I was like, if that trailer was out, it would have been all over Twitter, because the poster was all over Twitter.
You're right.
So I'm assuming
that's why I was confused. They must have got it like early.
Yeah, maybe it is a press version.
Yeah, they use. I mean, it makes sense.
Early access to. So anyway, so Cody was asked, "Will he watch this?" And he was like, "I don't want to give a." I forget the exact. Let me see if this article has the exact phrase that he used. I listened to it a couple times, but he basically just said that he didn't want to be like, he's like, I'm not just saying this to say this. He's like, he's like, I'm in the middle of a deep rewatch of Game of Thrones. And he was like, that's basically where my focus is. So I'm not going to get to the documentary right away. I'm sure I will eventually get around to it. And he was like, he was asked, well, does the locker room not believe Janelle Grant because nobody's really talking about it? And he just had this look on his face, like he kind of was stunned by the question, but he answered fairly well. He said, we're all busy trying to put on shows for 13,000. It was like 13,000, whatever the exact number was for Berlin. And he's like, we're doing this day in and day out, trying to prepare to put on the best show. So he was like, a lot of times we find out the information in real time, like you guys do. Like that's when we hear this information. And so he was like, our focus is this. Well, then the last question was, do you believe Janelle Grant? And he didn't hear he couldn't understand the question at first. And he was like, I'm sorry, what did you say? And because it was kind of not into them. I mean, the microphone seemed like maybe further away. So they repeated the question. And then that's when it went off. He was like, I don't have enough information to make a decision. Which was very much, I haven't read the lawsuit energy.
That is 100%. I haven't read the lawsuit energy. Mm-hmm. That's a patent political, he wants to go into politics someday. That's a great deflection. That he could have been on a Sunday morning mainstream media show with that all.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people said. A lot of people were like, the Game of Thrones thing was kind of, that part of the answer wasn't the greatest, but it's better.
But that was like a throw off. That was just trying to make him seem normal.
It's better than Paul Levesque has answered questions related to it. But then he said that, and that's where everybody was like, nope, that's unacceptable.
I think Cody has like the sense to know that that makes him seem like a normal, because he plays Zelda and he watches.
And that's what Jeremy people said the same thing to me. He was like, he is kind of like, oh, I'm just like you.
I'm like you guys.
I watched Game of Thrones too. I'm on a deep rewatch it. It was kind of like he was being, which it is also a political thing. I'm the everyday common man, just like you are. I get it.
I carry hot sauce in my bag, Sam.
Right. And I was like, Cody is a busy man. I get it. I have said it a million times. I'm a fan of Cody Rhodes. I met him when he came through on his indie run. I have been on media calls with him. I like Cody. But this was just a huge miss. And Cody is probably, of the wrestlers besides Paul Levesque, who obviously isn't a wrestler anymore, Cody is generally the best person to ask these type of questions because he's a former EVP. So he understands the business side of it. He understands it probably as closely as Paul Levesque would, because they are on the behind the scenes type of things. And I know he's just a wrestler or whatever, but he still has several years of experience.
He's also the EVP champion right now. He made a huge leap that was earth-shattering. And I mean, this is not just some wrestlers. This isn't even just Roman Reigns. We're talking about a guy who helped start a company that he's now working in opposition to. You're the world champion right now.
Right. Cody, these questions are, and then of course, and Venkin brings it up too, that went back to, these questions are not inappropriate, or are not appropriate to ask wrestlers. Yes, they are. They are very appropriate. They work for that company. That company is under a lawsuit. Not just, we've said it a million times, not just Vince McMahon, not just John Laurinaitis, but WWE itself is named in that lawsuit. I don't know why. It seems like the wrestlers involved, or just everybody involved, does not understand how serious this is. The DOJ has taken over this case. Vince McMahon is most likely going to be federally indicted.
The Wall Street Journal has been the leading edge on doing the stories. That's the Wall Street Journal, guys. Markets. He messed with stock money.
He, like you said, Mel says all the time, he messed with rich people's money, which you don't
do. The markets mess with you. You don't mess with the markets. You don't get to do whatever you want with market money and get away with it. And they're even more, they're stricter than ever. I'm finishing up a book that Garrett recommended called Power Failure. It's about GE. But man, oh man, because of these things that have gone on over the last 25 years, with financial crisis and just everything, places they're more than ever, you are not allowed to F with the stock money. You can't.
Right.
You need to do what's in the best interest of the shareholder.
Yeah.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
And
right. And that's where this
having your sex girlfriend on your staff with company money does not qualify.
No, this is a
and God
very,
only knows.
There's
how
serious.
Much
I mean, and then there's some serious allegations. I mean, there are allegations of her being trafficked, which that's huge. And there's potential. There's potential RICO violations involved in this. Like, there's some very, very serious things on multiple levels. This is extremely so. Yes, they're gonna be. And if, like, I made this point on Twitter yesterday, if they can't handle these questions from the wrestling media, then I don't know what the hell they're going to do when the mainstream media comes knocking. Because when that documentary comes out, because actually Lady B and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, she pointed out, she was like, well, the Netflix documentary is going to come out, and that's going to send mainstream media right to them. And then if and when an indictment comes down, the mainstream media is going to be all over it. And that they're going to ask these wrestlers.
I have an anchor on my
they're going to ask. Yeah, the wrestlers are going to be asked all kinds of questions. And it's going to be from Wall Street Journal. It's going to be from the Times. It's going to be from ABC. It's going to be
news outlets.
It's going to be from Deadline, Variety. All of these massive, massive publications are going to be asked. And so with all this money they're saving by not paying their talent, they need to be investing in PR and just basic PR for them, because that was not a great sign. And that's just from wrestling media that they can't answer these questions. So I don't know what they're going to, and then if certain people get subpoenaed to testify in court.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible
how are you gonna
too.
How are you going to answer a lawyer when you can't even answer Brandon Thurston?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's a great point because these places are. I didn't even think about the documentary angle. They are going to get it's not going to be enough that we're just wrestlers and we just that's not going to be enough for. Because I have a local news anchor here on our morning show, and it is our morning affiliate, but they're on the Fox channel, and he's a huge WWE fan. So when this comes out, there's going to be interest, at least in this region, syndicated on my morning news about this, and that's what lights the fires. Because that's, dude. I mean, we've had everyone he has wrestlers on anytime they when WWE comes to town, you can almost guarantee that they're going to send somebody to the Fox affiliate. So what are they going to do? Because I'm not saying the Fox affiliate's necessarily going to ask the questions, because there's other channels that would probably be more likely to ask them, but you never know.
Right.
Especially once these women, the women on the show who aren't wrestling fans will have to at least know something about what's going on, unless he does interviews by himself, which is just reinforcing BS, and he can go F off then. But they're going to start asking questions naturally.
Right.
They're going to just naturally have, if an inquisitive mind, they're going to go, well, why is he accused of trafficking a woman across state lines?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean,
exactly.
Where did that come from?
Right.
And that's, even if it's a dumb, I mean, I'm not saying anyone's dumb. I'm not calling anyone dumb. And even if it's just your average standard morning news anchor from Metro Detroit, they're gonna instinctively go, well, how does that work?
Right.
So
you work for a company that's named in a lawsuit that's been trafficking women? That's a natural question to ask. And
in our state our governor had an attempt made on her life. There was a kidnapping attempt made on our governor's life. So
right, exactly.
There's close to home, and this is a battleground state. It's very political right now. This is coming out when it's coming out. This could stoke. I mean, who knows? I'm sitting here talking to you about it. I'm getting a little get your popcorn ready about it.
There's and then there's also the possibility that the documentary comes out and then he gets indicted right around the same time.
Or that too,
there's that possibility, because it's been 1 year. August made 1 year. I mean, at this point, they can now extend and ask for. I think they can ask the jury to be seated for 6 more months. Perhaps they
we
were
got
waiting
to
until
ask
after
you
that.
on that.
Perhaps they were waiting until after the holiday weekend. I mean, and
That's
indictment
extending.
could come
Ooh,
anytime.
that's so many extensions of a
So,
grand jury. Oh
yeah.
my God.
And they've got a lot going on. I mean, they're on the Diddy case, which we've talked about. They're on
Oh,
the Harvey
dude, the
Weinstein
Southern
stuff.
District of New York, and then there's a new case that just popped into there that's a big political case because they're doing like it's.
Yes,
I
saw that
because I can't remember what it was exactly, but I was
no,
there
but I
like,
saw SDNY
that
was
court
involved, and I was like, oh my God,
full of crazy shit. It's like,
I was like, when I saw that they've got that new case, I was like, oh, they're gonna have to do. I was like, then they're gonna have to deal with this Vince stuff soon, most likely, if they've got to start. Yeah,
that's
it could be interesting. It could. There's going to be a lot happening. So yeah, and I said the same thing, Venkin. I was like, well, what if it happens when Netflix goes to? And it's the calendar. But it's kind of funny. Raw's moving to Netflix on January 6th.
Yeah,
which is kind of funny, but also the calendar, as my friend said, it's the calendar's fault because it's the first Monday after the holiday. But it is also
that's
a little
interesting
funny that it's the timing.
I gotta tell you, it's really funny because living here in an enormous battleground state where literally every single ad is just
that's us too. We're a battleground state too.
It's so terrible. But there are times when I almost hear I'm Vincent K. McMahon and I approve this message. Like, it's weird. My brain like does this thing to me, and I'm like, I can't. And because of their association, I think is part of it. But it's just there's times where like I'm watching this madness that's unfolding on the political landscape, and you see this court full of these incredibly important cases, including this one. I mean, it's pretty bad when this gets pushed down to being like second or third tier level compared to the other stuff that court is running with, considering the level of allegations in that suit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's nuts.
Yeah, and you know,
I gotta say this though. That's not okay, Cody.
No.
And you guys better get ready.
Of all the people I had hoped, I mean, the bar is low.
Of course.
But Cody has a little bit more sense. He has several years of being an EVP under his belt.
He has a public presence.
He at least at some point has had political aspirations.
He really has a public presence, and typically bigger
Cody
than him.
Even when they've asked Cody other questions, he has had better related to this type of stuff. He's had better responses, and has been. I mean, the question completely caught him off guard. But you have to be prepared for that, and you can't think, "Oh, well, I'm in Germany for a pay-per-view. No one's going to ask me that." And so,
it's not like the old days, sweetie. The internet exists,
right?
It's not like when your dad wrestled. It's 2025 nearly.
Yeah,
we're almost a quarter century in. We have had the things for 25 years. Like, people in Berlin have heard about this story. Okay, and
they're following
in and around the greater Berlin area as well.
So. Well, and the last time when Lucas asked his question,
the French reporter.
That's what I was about to. Yeah. So the European report, some of these European reporters are treating it like an actual reporting situation. They aren't treating it like this is just sports entertainment. They're treating it like sports media. If a soccer coach or owner of a soccer team was accused of the same things that Vince McMahon was accused of, they would be asking the same questions. So
they would be rioting on the continent.
You want wrestling to be considered a legitimate sport, then that means all of it. And you can call it sports entertainment all day long, but you still want it to be recognized as a real sport. And so that means all of it. You're going to get treated. Then if that's what you want, then you're going to be treated like the sports teams are. You're going to be under the same type of scrutiny, and you're going to have to tell them how to learn, or they're going to have to learn PR. You've got at least basic PR at the very least. Definitely. And after that, like, Paul Levesque is a big example in what not to do. Cody's answer is an example in what not to do. Even the first part of it for most wrestlers, even if they kind of lean into the, hey, I'm watching this, I don't know when I'm going to get to it. it's not the greatest answer, but it was fine. But the last question, where you say you don't have enough information, this information's been out since January. And if you find out information in real time, then that means you should know what we know. The articles are there.
If you're just like us and you're watching Game of Thrones, and you read all the same Wall Street Journal articles and we did. So don't act like you didn't. But and I mean, I think, like, I guess maybe for WWE fans, but give the fans a little bit of credit. I mean, that's just shitty. Like, and they're gonna have what Netflix brought them was like access to the European continent and things that, like, they didn't have deals in a lot of places because Netflix is in so many extra countries than they were before. So if they think it's bad now with just a handful of Western nations, like, they're never going to get asked questions in Saudi Arabia about anything because those guys have the same, like, that's anyway. But in places where there's real journalism, because it's not run by like 3 media conglomerates, you're going to get reporters. I actually, you know what, again, I think bring it on, because that's all admissible.
That's true.
All admissible.
So for that alone, they should give them some PR, just basic PR. And distance, if you have to and I get it, if wrestlers distance themselves from it, you know, I get it. They, you know, but at least have better answers than that, because that's just, at this point, it's just being willfully ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that says everything about your character right there.
Right. But again, I mean, that's literally what
sucks.
PR. You can't tell me TKO doesn't have, or Endeavor doesn't have PR. They don't have a PR team. They don't have the money for that.
There's no way Ari Emanuel at this point in his career should not be all over that. Like,
Nick Khan doesn't have. Nick Khan has to have PR experience. He worked in Hollywood and made movies for how long?
That's what I'm saying. Like, these people must have lost a step or something if they're not on this. They would, like, think about how many spoilers and how many people get flown around the globe to do, like, secret scenes in a Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie, and how they get sworn to secrecy for 8 months at a time or whatever. It's like, come on. Like, no.
And right. And if they don't know what to say, that's why you hire PR. It's September. This story came out in January. And this Netflix documentary is coming. This indictment is very likely coming. Like, that's on, if you are not prepared and your wrestlers are not prepared, then that's on you. You need to take that
this, and I mean it, but they are seriously doing the big dick energy. We're gonna get away with it because we always get away with it.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that most people in that company realize how big of a deal this is.
I don't even think
and I get it. And I get it. Vince has gotten away with many things for decades, and so I get it. And there's a possibility that he gets away with it again, or he dies before, you know, this goes to trial. Like, there's all of these things are possible, but the SDNY is involved. Like, this is some serious shit, and the FBI's pissed for him getting off the steroid trial. You don't think that they aren't going to try to
the FBI
make sure they're doing this by the book to make sure that they nail?
That's another one that we brought that up before, and it was something that, because it made me, especially I like Mike and JD, because they've done so much coverage on this as well, and they made me think, oh my gosh, it's right. They pissed off the feds, man. They pissed off the history of Hoover's guy.
And even if those dudes are retired, you don't think that information's not still around, and you don't think there's some leftover.
Oh man, it's so interesting to read
leftover.
It's so interesting to read about the FBI, because, like, what you can read about the FBI and what actually, I mean, that's another one. I know we mentioned it, but it did remind me they absolutely probably still have it out for him. And it's not been, I mean, maybe some of the people aren't in the bureau anymore, but maybe their kids are in the bureau, or
they've got friends, people who've heard those stories that
they don't like to lose. If they do a case, they want to win it because they're the feds. They win all the time.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Right. So that's why I have a feeling that maybe that's
pissed off
possibly
way too
why
many
maybe
people.
this is why it's taking longer. Like they are trying to make sure this is airtight before they bring it in front of this jury for an indictment.
Smart. I mean, they have to, but
right. So we'll see how this plays out. But until then, I was going to say until then, these questions are going to keep coming, but they're going to come once they're going to coming. The documentary's coming. Like we've, no matter what's in the documentary, even if they, try to whitewash it, regular mainstream media is going to be like, they're going to go looking and be like, what do you mean that there were NDAs? And they're going to go look this stuff up. And the Wall Street Journal articles are going to come up. The Vice articles are going to come up. If these mainstream media if they're doing their jobs properly, they're going to come find this information and then they're going to ask questions. Then
because they're going to have to, because they're subsidiaries of some of these companies, and also because they are like, it's too big. And especially if some big case, like if some big indictment does drop or some bigger thing does, like they won't have a choice.
Right.
It'll be too big of a story. It'll make too much advertising money. They'll be all over that. I mean, do you know how much money advertising money there is to be made in that kind of a scandal? Right now?
True.
Oh man. I love that stuff. CNN showed us an empty microphone for 20 minutes once. Okay? They'll love this.
Right. Yeah. So the situation's not going away, which is why they need to get PR involved as soon as possible. Should have already been taken care of.
Brad already has.
Yeah, Brad says we've been advised by WWE legal counsel to not talk about ongoing litigations as a non-answer, but it's 100 times better than some answers people have given. Yeah, you can give that. You can get
that's like a good, but see right there, that's what I would exactly tell everybody. Essentially,
that's what a PR company would tell them.
And legal counsel, if they have a legal team, their legal team should be telling people that too.
Yeah, just be like, I can't answer. Not what we've been saying. I mean, it sucks to get that answer, but at least the question's on record that has been asked, and that will show that PR has somehow gotten involved or legal has gotten involved and be like, hey.
But it makes it less ambiguous, and it doesn't kind of own yourself on where you stand about your feelings. I mean, it gives you the cringies about where Cody stands on some of the accusations.
No, and I was talking to BJ about it last night because we both saw it, and he reminded me, Cody is a Vince guy. He was he's not a Triple H guy. He's only with Triple H because Triple H is who's in charge now. He's been a Vince guy. His dad was under Vince for a long time. Vince has always been there. I mean, sure, that doesn't mean that I'm not saying that he agrees with, with what Vince was doing or anything like that, but
yeah, but people
have their loyalties,
relationships,
right?
With people
we see it. I mean, we look at John Cena.
Yep.
I think John Cena is mostly Cena's about as close as you can get to.
I don't know anything directly. But
I mean, there have been rumors. There have been insinuations.
I don't think that John Cena thinks that what Vince has done is all that wrong necessarily. Anyway, so
I've heard some rumors too. So probably similar to what you've heard. Yeah, and Vince says Vince is the one who brought Cody back. I mean, he brought him back as a big fuck you to Tony Khan. But he did bring him back because they were friends, or maybe not friends, but I mean
they've got that dad kid thing. I mean, is the closest I would. I mean, it's weird, those weirdly dysfunctional like father figure type relationships people end up in. It's kind of sad.
Well, and that keeps happening a lot. Like you even see, like we've talked about it before, like the Braun Strowman thing, where Braun Strowman's like, he was like the dad I never had, and he was my dad. He was like my dad, and he did all this stuff. And then what did they do? They fired Braun, like a few months after that interview came out. Like Braun was cut, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Triple H who brought him back into the fold. I don't think that was Vince. I think that was because Braun came back last year. Right. So I think that would have been under Triple H, not Vince brought him back. But we have seen that play out over and over again with a lot of these male wrestlers specifically. who have said Vince is like the father I never had. He's like a second father to me. Vince is the reason I have all these opportunities. Vince is the reason I made this much money. And so they're loyal to him, and they think everything is a lie to take him, because that they wonder how Vince is doing. They hope he's okay, and that he's not, that who gives a fuck about the survivors. So
I mean, one of them took their life, and the one who's involved in the lawsuit has to live with this every day. Like,
right. And there's multiple, and again, these are only the NDAs that we know about. There is so much more that we probably don't know. And what we do know is already pretty damn horrific. And so there could be, I'm sure this is the tip of the iceberg. And then you bring in, there's the Ring Boy situation. There's Jimmy Snuka. There's all of these things on top of that. So it's
my bullshit alarm is going off in case my town is calling bullshit on all of this.
I can vaguely hear it. But
I'm glad it's not coming through as loud as it sounds to me most of the time, but it is making me, that's.
Yeah. And so I guess that's
not going to get better.
No, I was going to say, I guess we'll just leave it at that, because I mean, what else is there to say? And it's going to happen again.
TBC, because we know this is coming. I mean, something's going to happen. One of these days, they either have to release that grand jury or do something.
That documentary out, is that what, September 25th?
25th, I think.
So the SmackDown moves to USA on the 13th.
And then a week later, they've got this
like
thing coming out.
Like 10 days later, the documentary comes out. So
we'll see how that plays out.
And then Bad Blood is the next pay-per-view. It's in October. It's like early October. So there's gonna be a scrum, right? Like a week and a half after that documentary.
Well, I guess out. Like Brandon Thurston and John Alba and there's so many Johns. I always
John
forget.
Pollock. I think I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. They'll do like they did. They'll do something they did last time. They'll allow one of them to come in, so they're not showing bias, but then they will not give them a microphone. They will not allow them to ask a question.
They were there.
So somebody else has got to step up and ask a question. You got to quit relying on. I know some of you are there for clickbait content because that's what pays you. It's what pays the company you write for. I get it. I know that certain things, but if you are not beholden to that stuff, then it's going to be on you to have these questions ready, because they are going to try to they're going to try to keep people like Brandon Thurston and John Pollock and John Alba and all of they're going to Sean Ross Sapp for that matter. They're going to try to keep them they will let one of them in the room like they did last time, so they can be like, oh, we're not biased. He
was in the room. He was covering the media scrum.
Didn't get to ask the question. So it's going to be on other media to step up and be like, if they're silencing other people by specifically not calling on them, then somebody else is going to have to be like asking a question related to this documentary.
I hope somebody
because we do know Janelle's team said that they were not contacted by Netflix. They were not contacted to release it, so they didn't get from. I have asked for clarification. One of the people, because this came out on Thursday, one of the people is out of the office. It's holiday weekend. Hopefully, we'll get some more clarification after the holiday on exactly what that means. But the initial comment was that they are not involved in this documentary. They were not asked. They were not asked to comment on this documentary from what the initial thing was. So hopefully we'll get on Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll get more information on exactly what that means, or if they give a little bit, or if they even release their own statement, which I expect is coming, that they'll release their own statement about whatever. Perhaps they wait and release it on September 25th when the documentary comes out, but I expect comments are coming. And if I get a response from her team, I will definitely post it to my social media like I generally do.
That's an interesting choice for that. That's right. A choice. I would have done. I mean, so you're going to ignore it entirely then, is what that tells me?
No, well, not I was gonna say not entirely, because they have talked to journalists, but they may only cover the NDA part of it and not the lawsuit part of it. Like, we don't, obviously.
I'm sure they'll try and discredit that portion of it, because that's a sticking point for him, that he bitches about. He can't even help himself if he gets in a situation about, well, as soon as she talked to somebody, I didn't have to pay her anymore.
Let's see here. I didn't know if, you know what? I wonder if I went past this article, because Post has an article, and I was going to see if they put Janelle's team's response. Let me look here. This is just what he's talking. This is like highlights of what Cody said in general. No, that's not in there. But yeah, Post said, I'm almost positive that Post said that her team was not asked anything.
No,
but again, I did reach out to her team.
Yeah, good.
The person who normally gets back to me, I got an automated message that they were out of the office.
It is
obviously it's a holiday weekend, so it'll likely be Tuesday before I hear anything. But of course, if I get a response, I will definitely post it to my Twitter, and we'll talk about it. Well, probably not on next Saturday's show, because we're going to be doing All In pre-show, and we're going to, knock on wood, only talk about
we might have to pull off what we pulled off for Wembley.
Hopefully move to the next pay-per-view. I mean, the next show, to talk about any nonsense. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's a week. We'll see.
We'll just go ahead and move on to AEW, since obviously we did the pre-show. There was the Boom came back to do their post-show. Dynamite Show has done their stuff. Is there anything you want to say about All In? What you thought of it? Matches? Anything?
So I see some people have already weighed in on it. I thought All In was great. I really enjoyed all the matches. I loved the Mariah and Tony match. I thought they did an excellent job with it. I was very glad that they gave it its due. They didn't like try and skimp on the ending. There's more story.
I was surprised it was so early in the show.
Yeah.
And that we immediately go into Fozzy performing. So I'm like, I mean, they got 15-ish minutes. I'm like, and it didn't feel super rushed, but I'm like, did they only give it 15 minutes to let Fozzy perform? Because they did apparently cut time off of Jack Perry and Darby Allin. Apparently a few minutes got cut from that match. I don't know if it was related to the Fozzy performance.
I hoped that the reason they put them on a little earlier was to give them plenty of time to do their story and their,
right. And then I believe Mercedes and Britt got 17 minutes, I want to say. I think is what we got there. What'd you think about that match?
That was all right. I mean, Mercedes kind of carried her a little bit. I mean, it's kind of
she did.
It's very obvious that Britt is not in a position to be in a match like that, and I feel like sadly she got a little bit exposed, and that's no good. I mean, for a person, and that will make it tougher. And because of her personal issues that she seems to have, I don't think that's going to play well, because if people are banging on, like if they're jumping on her match or saying things about that,
people have pointed out that they have not talked about that match since it happened. They showed last night on Collision, they showed the package from Capital Collision. Mm-hmm. They showed Mercedes post comments about her New Japan match.
Mercedes is like building a big match separately from this whole thing, and it was
they haven't brought up Britt at all. We have not heard her name. We have not seen her. Britt did tweet the day after the pay-per-view a clip of the match where they were on the top rope and she took that really bad bump, which, as a lot of people pointed out, if you were coming back from a serious back injury, you should not have agreed to that spot to begin with. But she posted it with no context. There's no comments or anything like that. The assumption is people think she posted it because she was saying she got injured there, and that's why the match was the way that it was, and that Mercedes then had to carry her all match long because she was injured, which is certainly possible. But it's
also an easy way out.
Yes.
If you wanted one.
Right.
So
that was my thought. And Britt did nearly die last year.
Correct.
She had also, on top of the seizures, she had a severe back injury.
Mm-hmm.
A real one that, we can go back to the Thunder Rosa.
She has some serious neurological issues.
She did, so she had a
lot
going on. So I want to try not to, want to give her some grace and some leeway. Yes. But all of that compounded with the fact that Britt has never been the best in the ring. She's had her moments. She's had some good matches, but overall, there have been other women in the division who have constantly been better than her. I mean, she's in a division with Shida and Riho and Thunder Rosa, Jamie Hayter. And that was before she got injured. Now she's back. Mercedes is there. You've got Camille. You have Queen Aminata, who looked incredible last night. You've got
Mina Shirakawa is now still involved in all of this.
You've got Lady Frost.
And
Athena.
I mean, even though she's training, Shida is still out. Or did you mention her? I mean, there's so many good women right now. You can't.
So it's a little.
You can't hide behind your gimmick anymore.
Right. I think it's a little bit of both. I think that I do think that people just genuinely dislike her because of the backstage stuff that has come out, and that she's a bully and things like that. And so maybe they're a little harder on her, considering her, and they're not taking her injury into consideration. I'm trying to look at the whole picture, because she came from a very serious back injury. She also had the seizures and has had these health problems. She's so those things have been there, but also, I mean, she already was just, maybe, I don't want to say above average, but I mean, she was not as, in some cases, depending on her opponent, she had to be carried in previous matches.
She didn't get the reps. I think someone even mentions it in the chat here. She hasn't gotten the reps that, I mean, and
the reps that she was getting weren't, those matches she had on TV leading up to it weren't
quality matches.
Great. Harley Cameron looked a little bit better than her in that match. Again, she is coming off of this injury, but I feel like I understand why they had Mercedes in that position. And on paper, it should have been a better match. I think Britt was not ready. And then on top of that, she gets suspended in between this. So that takes her off TV, where she can't have this match. And we don't know what type of training, I don't know what type of training she's doing. Obviously, she's probably had to modify it due to her injuries and her health and things like that. But I don't think that Mercedes was ready. I mean, that Britt was ready. And it showed. And now she's going to have to combat all of that. She's going to have to get off, she's going to have to shake that match off, but they're not even talking about it. It's probably not related, but I saw a tweet today. There was an all-out poster that had a bunch of wrestlers and Britt was on it, and they have re-released it and Britt is not on that poster. Maybe it's just because
how she handles this is going to say a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The right way to handle this in this situation is to buckle down and go talk to someone like Bryan Danielson or another wrestler in that realm that's going to be willing to help you out and teach you. I mean, they still have good coaching staff. I mean, QT, for better or worse, is still, he's not there anymore, is he?
No, he's back.
Okay.
He's back.
For better or worse, he's still a good coach, as long as he stays off TVs and everything else.
Yeah, and doesn't talk about women's matches.
Dustin there helping people, and he's happy to help. There's other.
I mean, there's even Maria that they can ask questions to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The Joshis are right there, man. Use them. They are awesome. I would be.
Serena Deeb is back, and she's been wrestling for how long?
Go work with them. Go get some time with them, even though it's. I mean, we had Spider on a few weeks ago, and even he talked about the fact that you need to go back to the gym and you need to do your exercises.
Go to your wrestling school and just do the basics and focus. And then I know, use your relationship and with Tony Khan and go to Japan.
Yeah,
Anna
right.
Jay did. I mean, perhaps Stardom was like, I mean, I don't know how much Stardom has a say in like, hey, we want this, we'd like to have this woman come over. But I mean, they did it they sent Penelope to DDT a couple of times. You know, they've sent Anna Jay's getting ready to come home, and apparently Anna has, did fairly well over there. She's learned a lot about herself. I saw her post-match comments after her last match, and she was saying that she's had the time of her life and how great these Japanese wrestlers are and how these women are just wonderful, which Mercedes said the exact same thing in her promo after Collision about how good the Japanese women are. And so then use that. Go once you are healed enough to, to travel and takes that. She's still got to be healed a lot to take that kind of damage, because the Japanese women are obviously they hit a lot.
I mean, you
harder.
can work in the dojo though. I mean, you can work in the gym with people.
But if she gets to a point where she's physically able to handle that type of contact, then going to Japan would probably benefit her. Even if it's DDT, whatever she, like you said, going to the dojo, doing that type of stuff could be very beneficial for her.
Practice. I mean, working out, getting your strength back. Like, it's unfortunate. And again, her interpersonal skills are going to come into play here, because how is she going to react to the fact that, I mean, if you're not drawing ratings and all these other women are what they are, and Mercedes is getting paid what she's getting paid, and that match
look at the four-way they had last night.
Yeah, right.
Like, I mean, that should, like that.
Well, there were other better women's matches on the pay-per-view.
Right. And you've got even like a woman, like going back to Harley, like I think I've heard she's only had like 35 matches, but like, look how solid she is. Like, she's developing. I mean, obviously she's developing and stuff, but I've been very happy to see like how solid she's been. And I want to bring up this comment that Daza had, was that it was interesting that Jamie has not been put with Britt. Jamie's coming out of chasing off Camille seemed an obvious addition to the match, but it came out like around the suspension that there was something that happened with Britt and Jamie in real life, and that is why they are keeping them separate. There's something happened with them too, and like when all of this other stuff happened, not the stuff with the MJF, but like when there's repeated, because they have said this has been an ongoing issue with Britt.
That's what I've heard as well.
And apparently, Jamie was one of these people that they had some issues with, and that is why. That's why this is not Jamie and Britt are keep being separated, is because apparently,
I mean, if you can't be a team player at the end of the day, I mean, no matter what, I mean, you're all competing for spots and all of those things, but at the end of the day, like, this is a division, and if you can't be a team player in that division, but you also want to be the face of the division, those two things kind of don't go together very well. It just because all these other women are building camaraderie, and you're sort of over here doing your own thing. And I don't know what she expects.
Well, and then that actually kind of leads me into the next portion of the conversation, unless there's anything else you want to add about All In before we move on. So that whole attitude kind of plays into what's happening now with Saraya, because Saraya has been doing we've talked about Saraya before and how her boyfriend says very problematic things, and then she doubles down in defending him. And so over at the Dynamite in Cardiff, there was a woman passing out transgender flags, or holding them up during Saraya's match. At Collision, I believe they held up. No, it was at the pay-per-view, not on Collision. The pay-per-view, somebody quickly held up a transgender flag. There was a sign. I forget which champions were standing in the ring, but there was a sign held up that said trans lives or trans rights are human rights. But then there was a person posted a picture of themselves flipping off Saraya, and Saraya's boyfriend went after them and said something. He called them a they, them, and
all the names you would expect.
Yeah, I can't. And Britt Saraya was like, "Oh, you really told me, didn't you?" But I mean, the crowd booed her when she came out when when I went back and watched 0 Hour, that crowd booed her the moment they saw her. They booed her when she got on stage with her family. They booed her in the ring. Sure, some of it is because she's a heel and that's what you do, but that's very different from the reaction she got last year.
And there's go away heat. And
yes,
I'm pretty sure she was getting the second.
Right. And so over the last few months, she's been doing that. She's been calling herself the unproblematic icon, which I cannot stand. And she's leaning. So, but now she appears to be leaning into it even more. And she's going to do it as a character because after the show, before the press conference, the media scrum technically started, it was like Renee, I think it was Renee, RJ, and Daddy Magic were kind of like recapping. They're just keeping it while they're waiting for Tony and because apparently Tony had to convince Bryan Danielson to come to the scrum. And so they did him first. And so while they were doing that, they were doing their little thing. Well, Saraya burst into the room talking about how nobody respects her, the company disrespects her, the crowd booed her, because nobody respects her. And then she makes the comment where she said, let me see if I can find she was just saying she doesn't care she said, I don't care if you're male, I don't care if you're female, I don't care if you're a they, them, they're gonna kick your ass if you talk bad about her. So she's already getting into this part where she's leaning into the fact that a lot of people, not just, I was gonna say in the LGBTQ plus community, but even outside the community, don't like her antics. And sure, maybe it's just, and I think it gets ignored by Tony Khan and other people because it's just happening on Twitter. So they think, oh, this is a Twitter thing, whatever. But now she brought it to TV. She brought it to the post show, and it appears she is going to lean into that in the same way that Chris Jericho leaned into the please retire stuff, and now he started into the learning tree. Saraya's like, oh, well, it worked for him. I'm going to bring this as a character on TV. I'm
not sure Raylan Job is a character that I would pick for AEW, but that's just me.
Right. And then Ronnie, her boyfriend, again, that weekend,
dating a right-wing nut job, so.
Well, and he's been openly transphobic.
He's a prejudiced piece of crap. It's okay. And we can say it.
She defends him every single time. He has been, but then she's like, oh, well, he, of course it's always, well, he bought a bunch of expensive shoes and donated them. Like, she always comes with some reason to back him. Well, then he even, I almost don't want to read it because of it's just vile.
That bad.
Also, it's on Twitter and it's just so I can't decide. And one of the other issues, AEW is paying him because her theme music, her theme song that she's used the entire time she's been there, is from his shitty little band. And it's about cancel culture. The song is about cancel culture because they don't believe, and again, we've said it a million times, cancel culture doesn't exist. You're just accountable for your actions. And if cancel culture really existed, then there would be a lot of, Bill Cosby wouldn't have got out of jail. Harvey Weinstein wouldn't have had something overturned. We wouldn't have, Mel Gibson wouldn't still be making.
You wouldn't have a rapist, insurrectionist being able to run for leader of the free fucking world.
Right. Yeah. So all of these things.
So I hope we don't get demonetized for having that.
Hopefully not. But yeah, so AEW is paying him. I don't know if it's every time they use it or just a general fee. Like, I don't know how that works, but they're paying him. And it's funny because
they have to pay him royalties, essentially.
Saraya did an interview not long after she was signed and said they almost didn't get to use the song. There was an issue with like right at the last minute before she came out. There was like a legal issue and she texted Tony Khan, and so Tony went and told legal, go get this taken care of. So she nearly had a different entrance song for her first appearance, but at the last minute the legal team got it straightened out, and now her boyfriend's shitty little band gets money from AEW because she uses that as the theme song.
I really just don't like where this is, especially with the women's division where it's positioned to be with the other stuff that we just got finished talking about.
It takes away from the women's division. You have an openly transgender woman in your division.
You have people. I mean,
You have Abaddon who uses the pronouns they them, and commentary uses that for them rather. So like you have people actively on the roster who are getting used that are in that community, and then you have Saraya online doubling down on what her boyfriend says, and now appears to be bringing it to TV as a character, and they don't see an issue with that. Like good. It's gross. I hate all of it. I already don't want her on my TV, and now they're leaning into it even more, and that is the wrong way to go with this. And I hope they jump on it, because maybe Tony Khan is a very online person. Maybe he will see things and be like, okay, this is not having the reaction we want it to have. And he's let other things pass before. He's let this go on for this has been going on since before Saraya even signed with AEW. Like, people were having these conversations, and then she signed, and the conversations have pretty much been nonstop, at least from what I personally have seen. This is a conversation that keeps happening. And then you have Ronnie Radke saying things that transgender people groom children. He tweeted that on August the 20th. I've got it right here in front of me. I saw it when he said it. But it's right here in this tweet I'm looking at. In this article. Like, he's saying things like that. And Saraya is defending him. And sure, perhaps Saraya herself is not a transphobe, but she is openly enabling her partner to say these things, and she doubles down on defending him. And now she's essentially taking this character to TV, and that is a huge problem.
But it's the part about her being this way on television. People look up to wrestlers. It's just like any other thing. Like, there was a hilarious parody that a bunch of villains from various shows got together and made a song, and it was like, we're really nice guys in person.
Yeah.
And it's people, what they see on television, they think a lot of times this is just real. So if that's someone they like, if they're former WWE people that are watching her or whatever, I mean, I don't know, but you can't have that. People are taking that out into the world. Like,
right.
It's not a funny gimmick. It's not. That's sounds like something that like a 70s promoter would let happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like some shitty shindy gimmick.
Territory shit. Like,
right.
It sounds really like does. It feels like the worst of the worst Carney level of like, and then it shows me that she can't even be clever, because that's what you're going with after all of this.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's way better versions of a heel you could be and have people and lean into being booed and actually get over without being gross.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very,
that kind of stuff is gross. I have no room
in
my life for people. I have no energy and no room in my life for people like that anymore. No. Like, humans.
Well, and there's no point putting her on TV. And I was like, how does Harley Cameron keep getting saddled with the worst gimmicks? She got stuck with the QTV bullshit.
Seriously,
then they stuck her with Saraya, and now she's having to deal with this and do this weird comedy thing with her.
They're probably putting her with Saraya to get her some positive heat.
They even did,
which is worse,
stuff when they brought in Zach a few months ago, before we found out Ruby was pregnant, and Zach was trying to date Ruby, and then got mad and was punching things. So they were leaning into an abuse storyline, with Freya, when Saraya was mad that she's like, what's wrong with my brother? He's not good enough for you. Like, it was just really weird. And then they backed off using that, and now they're doing this, and it's not working. And I've seen a couple comments that, Saraya's contract is supposedly is up soon. I can't tell if they're just letting her finish up TV parts of her contract, and that's why they're doing this stuff now, or because of the stuff that they did on Sunday, they put her in a feud, seemingly have put her in a feud with Jamie. They had Jamie wrestle Harley on Wednesday. Her first match back in 18 months or whatever it was against Harley Cameron. And I don't say that as anything bad towards Harley, but this is Jamie's been gone this long, and you're putting her in a storyline with Saraya. So it feels like they put her in a storyline with Saraya because Saraya has re-signed, is my feelings. But even if she goes to WWE, I have to watch it. I mean, hopefully they have enough sense to have Paige not act that way, but I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, that's more their jam than AEW. At the end of the day, it's the kinds of stuff that they've done in the past. It jibes with their past actions in terms of storytelling.
Right.
It wouldn't shock me. And because Triple H is still a product of Vince McMahon and and his own ego, like, Lord knows.
Perhaps, like Vinkin says, they wouldn't have Paige really wrestle, and she'd go back to doing the kind of
manager thing.
What Sonya Deville is doing, right? Well, Sonya's doing both. She is kind of more of a managing type of thing, but she has wrestled a little bit. So perhaps they do, but the last time we saw Paige, she was managing. So perhaps that's what they do here. But I wouldn't be surprised if she re-signed, because Mercedes is there and they have the history, and I assume we're getting that match at some point. So, perhaps she didn't re-sign and they're just letting her finish out her contract, but it feels like putting her in a storyline with Jamie because she has re-signed, and they're doing I'm the better British wrestler than you, which is not a competition. If you have Jamie and Saraya, if it's Jamie and Saraya, and we're going by 2024 standards, then Jamie Hayter is a much better wrestler than Saraya. Of course, I know Saraya has neck injuries and that has limited her, and I get it. But
no,
it's
not even close. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Laurent says that Jamie will probably face Saraya all out on 0 Hour. If that match is happening, it does. Should go on Dynamite, but if they have to give it a pay-per-view, it should be on 0 Hour.
Yeah, it should. That's the one time I would actually be like, please don't put that on the main show.
David asks if we think we will eventually see a confrontation between Camille and Deonna. I could see that happening eventually.
I would love that. I would definitely love it. That would be an amazing feud.
Yeah, especially if they end up backing off Deonna and Thunder Rosa for a little bit, and kind of moving them both away from that, and then because I don't think Deonna Thunder Rosa is done. I think it's done for now, and it's one of those we'll revisit down the road, in a year or two. And then we'll circle back to it, but putting Thunder Rosa in the potential title and the number one contenders match last night feels like they're kind of moving them, and Deonna hasn't been there in a couple of weeks, so it kind of feels like maybe they're separating them and put them in different things. And I've loved this storyline with Thunder Rosa and Deonna, but I would not be mad if they kind of move them off of each other, because how do you follow that up? Their last match was I think at this point, like, that's a good stopping point. Let's take a break from this. We'll revisit down the line. Yeah, I would agree with Laurent that Deonna and Thunder Rosa feels like a never-ending feud in the vein of Hangman and Swerve. Right. So they can both, I think now after their last match, it's time to kind of let them do separate things for a little bit, and then we'll revisit
Circle back to each other.
They could even revisit it at All In next year, because it's going to be in Texas. That's where this match happened in Arlington. They could just, cool it off until then, and, let them, do something there. I would be great with, but yeah, I would love to see Deonna and Camille do something. That would be a lot of fun. I think that would be really cool to see. And I think somebody said it somewhere in the comments. I think it was Brad was talking about how this All Out, or maybe it was I can't remember now who said it, but talking about how the All Out build has been really good. Obviously, they've had to build things quickly. I'm not sure how I feel about Jack Perry being the one to challenge Bryan Danielson. I was, especially because he has a title, and it just feels a little. It wasn't connect. Like, I get it. I clearly understand why Jack Perry. Like, obviously, you want to go for the big one.
Mhm.
So I get it, but it just didn't connect with me for whatever reason. It felt like, but then you also have Jon Moxley who challenged Darby. So it feels like maybe they're doing something with the pillars and the big stars of the company. Perhaps that's what they're doing. So yeah,
it seems like maybe they're using Blackpool since like they have the champion now. They're using Blackpool to position people. While
that was clearly that.
Like while Bryan is on his retirement tour, because of the nature of these wrestlers, they're trying to position new people for good pushes in the future.
And
Which I appreciate.
And obviously the Blackpool Combat Club winning was clearly because Death Triangle was supposed to win that match. And the Lucha Brothers. So they still they wanted to give Pac his moment. And then because of whatever this is that which we'll talk about in a minute about the Jon Moxley heel turn apparently that we're getting. And well, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to overlap with that. But yeah, so it's really interesting. I think the match will be good with Jack Perry and Danielson. It just felt like right out of the gate, like this is not the match that, I mean, I don't know necessarily who I would have put there, but it wouldn't have been Jack Perry. And maybe it's because he has a title. So maybe I was just not thinking that was who would go there. Brad says that he's fine with Jack overall. There's a story there, and it's a 1 week build to take a loss. You don't really want him to do someone bigger at the moment. Plus, I'm sure Bryan handpicked him, which fair is certainly fair. And we obviously were getting Darby versus Danielson at Grand Slam because because Darby won that. Darby won that match to get a title shot. Then you have Christian Cage lurking because Christian Cage won the Casino Gauntlet match to have a title shot at any time. And he can just cash that in whenever. Kind of like Money in the Bank. So Danielson's got his feuds built up. Apparently there's been rumors that Darby has been heavily talked about to be the one that takes the title off of Danielson.
I heard that a little. I heard a little bit.
I don't like that.
Especially
if they do it later, perhaps. But for me, Darby has got he's in too many title pictures. Like he's constantly it's the TNT, it's the tag team titles, now it's the world title. There's Darby fatigue there. Also, I will point out, should he win the title, because it's going to get, maybe this is the thing that only stays on the internet and doesn't turn into anything. Darby was named and speaking out by at least 2 women. And that is something that is, something that is still talked. Not all the time, but it is something I see referenced. And if he wins that title, that conversation is going to start up again, because anytime he wins the title, I see it. And so it will get brought up again. I'm sure that that's something that they probably have moved on from. I don't want to say they don't care about, but it's not something that's probably
in the day-to-day operations
doesn't factor into their booking decisions, because he's won the TNT championship multiple times. They paired him with Sting and all of that stuff. And, he has said publicly on TV that he's gone to therapy. Perhaps that's something he's working on. For all we know, he's made amends to these women. I have no clue, but it is still something that's out there. And because I read them myself when Speaking Out happened, I remember reading them and what was said. So it will get brought up again. And again, maybe it's just an internet thing, kind of like with Saraya, and they'll just be like, well, it'll die down soon enough. And, it's not going to affect our booking choices. But I mean, that is something that's always in the back of my mind when I see a Darby match. It's just,
if with proper positioning, maybe at the end of Danielson's run, I guess, maybe. But things have a way of coming back around. So if that does happen, that will definitely come up because that's how wrestling Twitter and social media and just everything works. And they will have to face that, whether they want to remember it or not.
Well, yeah, you can't just pretend speaking out didn't happen. As much as
they're
they
doing
want
a pretty good job of it right now.
I mean, well, that is very true.
I mean, they do an excellent job of pretending Me Too and speaking out haven't happened at all. So, I mean, there's very small group of podcasters and media people that I listen to that like, I mean, there's just like Garrett always mentions it, or Paul and Jeff, Jeff's always met people like that. But in the larger picture, it's kind of both people of them have gone away. I mean, certainly in the political sphere, but I mean, other than being used as like memes for jerks that want to use woke and cancel culture wrong.
Right.
So,
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah. So there is that, but even
meaning,
regardless of the speaking out stuff, even if that was not a factor at all,
I just don't know. I don't
think Darby should take the off of Danielson, and it should not be a Grand Slam. I don't want a month-long run. I mean, if his neck can handle it, I will only phrase it that way. Clearly, Bryan Danielson's health comes before anything. And if he can't make it past Grand Slam, then, I get it. But if he is healthy enough to continue to wrestle a little bit longer and be a fighting champion as he says he would like to be, then Darby is not the one to take the title off of him, and Grand Slam is way too soon. Especially when you have Christian.
And it's not in anybody's town. I mean, I get it. It's in Brad's hometown, which is lovely. But
well, yeah, because then why? And that's and
there's no like connection to the city for either of those wrestlers directly. Yeah. So and I mean, there is. I mean, they've wrestled there a million times. I mean, maybe they will have the match. Maybe. Well, no, because it's already on Long Island. I don't know.
Yeah, and I see Jermaine and I brought this up as well, that Jermaine's because that just have Swerve beat Danielson in a rematch when they have the pay-per-view in Washington, which
that's what I see. We've said that.
We've said that as well because
we're with you.
Because I forgot that Darby. I knew Darby had a title shot, so I was like, "Oh, they'll do Darby Danielson in Washington," and then I was like, "Oh wait," and then I forgot it was at Grand Slam, which is. Wait a minute, is that September 25th? Is Grand Slam the same day as the Netflix documentary?
Oh, wait a minute. Holy crap. Is it? Wait a minute. Let me pop my calendar up here. What is the 25th?
Is Grand Slam the 25th? Or am
I just it can't be. The 25th is a Wednesday.
Right. And I believe that's the Netflix documentary.
And that's when it'll come. Is Grand Slam going to be a pay-per-view or it's a regular show?
No, it's a pay-per-view when it's in Australia. Here, it's because it's always been
okay. Next February or whatever.
Grand Slam has always been
a regular
a Raw, and usually a Raw and Rampage. This year, it's Raw and Collision. Is how they're doing it.
Dynamite.
Yes, I'm sorry, Dynamite and Collision. I didn't even realize I said Raw. But I think I was thinking Raw. But yes, so yes, Grand Slam this year. Grand Slam is still on TV. Next year is the pay-per-view in Australia, and it will be a Saturday show. But this year is a Wednesday. But they usually have big matches. Like last year's where Eddie Kingston beat Claudio for the ROH title. They've done. Wasn't Kenny Danielson won? Wasn't that at the first Grand Slam?
It might be.
I think so. And then they've had. Saraya debuted at the Grand Slam in 2022, and the only reason I know this is because I was just working on an article about some stuff, and that's the only reason this stuff is. That's where they did. Yeah, so I think that's it. I think was it Danielson? I can't remember, but they've always done big matches, so it makes sense that there's a title shot there. I really hope that.
Yeah, but he shouldn't drop it on a TV show. He should drop it on a pay-per-view.
Yes. And Brad says, yes, that he was there for Kenny Danielson 1. That's what I thought. I was like, wasn't that Grand Slam 1? That was, yeah.
That's good.
Yes, because that conversation came up when was the MJF Ospreay. No, not MJF. MJF Ospreay was at the best match in Dynamite history. And I was like, no, because Danielson Omega happened on Dynamite. Yep. It was very great. It was a very, very good match. But for me, it was not the best match in Dynamite history. So that's another reason I remember it being on Grand Slam, because we were just talking about it a couple months ago. But Yeah, so that's where
I don't know.
don't know where I was. Oh, I guess we'll circle back to the John Moxley thing.
Okay, yeah, Moxley.
So John Moxley has been off TV for a couple months, finally getting his well-deserved time off that he deserved. And we wondered last week, and would Mox be in London, regardless if he was on TV or not, to be there with the rest of BCC, especially if Danielson retired. If he somehow lost that match, like, you would think Mox would be there. Well, it turns out Mox was still here, and he was backstage at Revolver. Which he is heavily involved in Revolver. He does a lot. He's on the shows often. I'd say fairly often. Like, it seems like every few months he's either got a match or they talk to him. Like, he was supposed to have a match with Gringo Loco a few months ago, ended up being injured, so they just had him like come out and talk. And Renee was there.
That he's still doing that, what he's always done with promoting. Since he's left WWE and promoting indies and helping them out and putting them. It just really love that he does that stuff.
Me too. So
he's the man.
He is. He is the man. So then we have Mox, a surprise. A surprise return on Wednesday. Comes out to not Wild Thing, but to his New Japan theme song.
Yeah,
which I didn't quite catch at first, and then
it was like, what? Wait, what?
Yeah, because at first I didn't even, it didn't register it was in this New Japan theme. I was like, why isn't this Wild Thing? Like, what are we doing here? And then somebody later was like, that's his New Japan theme. And I was like, duh. and that's what I thought when he came out. And I was like, oh, he's not coming out to Wild Thing. And then he cuts the promo, and I was like, we're getting New Japan Moxley, because New Japan Moxley is like, we've talked about this many times. Like, there's AEW John Moxley, there's New Japan John Moxley, and there's Indie John Moxley.
Yeah, like,
and he turns it up a little bit more at each thing. AEW, even though he bleeds a lot and has really great matches, AEW is tame for him, because he can turn it up a notch, and then he can turn it up another notch, which is what we've seen. We've seen it in Revolver, we've seen it in Bloodsport, we saw it in that Defy match with Filthy Tom.
I love Bloodsport.
I still talk about, because that match was super bloody. It's a phenomenal match. So I was like, hell yeah, we're getting Hill John Moxley. And then later on in the night, we see John Moxley again, and it's like a couple of indie guys are back there, and John stops them, or they stop John, and then we see a woman come out of nowhere, and like she takes them out, and we were like, it turns around, and it's Marina Shafir, and I was like, hell yes. I was like,
I was like, oh,
like John Moxley.
So excited.
Yes, I was like, this is Revolver Marina. This is the Marina who I keep asking why we have not seen her in AEW and ROH. Why do we not have Revolver Marina here? Because she's really good. John Moxley has been wanting to work with her. And then I was like, so then I couldn't tell. I was like, are they separate and they're going to be their own faction, and he's leaving BCC? That's why he wasn't there. I was like, or did he finally convince Bryan Danielson to add a woman to the mix? Because when BCC
he's on his way out, though.
When BCC first started, they threw out the names of some women they'd like to see involved, and Danielson turned into He-Man woman hater and was like, we don't allow women in here. I don't think a woman needs that. I don't remember his exact quote, but I was raised my eyebrow at him a little bit, was a little disappointed by his response. He basically was like, BCC doesn't allow women. So like I said, he turned into a He-Man woman's hater club. And so I couldn't figure out. I was like, and it feels like Moxley is leaving BCC. It feels like this is going to be two separate factions. They've got Pac now. They can do Pac has essentially replaced him over there. Mox can do whatever this is. And then I saw somebody make the comment that if this is a new faction, that what if he brings in Bobby Lashley and MVP, because both men are leaving WWE. Well, MVP is gone. And then Bobby Lashley, I think his contract is already up, and he's already been moved off the roster. There's been rumors of the Hurt Business coming, because Shelton Benjamin obviously is a free agent. There's been rumors that perhaps the Hurt Business goes to AEW. So then some people wondered. I mean, it was just a tweet that I saw. They're like, "Oh, what if this?" And I was like, "Oh, that I had not thought about that." I was like, that could be a really interesting group to see. John Moxley and Bobby Lashley would be really interesting. I don't know that I would necessarily put them together, but could be like that could be cool. Kind of.
But you might be. I mean, we might be surprised because we don't know what he would be like in AEW if he were to come in and
exactly
work with New Japan John Moxley, who
right. And Bobby Lashley has New Japan experience, as does Shelton Benjamin.
That's right.
And then actually he does I think MVP does too, right? Didn't he do some stuff in Japan as well?
I can't confirm that, but it wouldn't shock me because he's done freaking everything.
Maybe I'm wrong. I know, because obviously I know Shelton did, but I feel like MVP. And then I saw the other day that MVP has been getting stem cell treatment in Mexico, and he was saying that he can like use his legs better now, and like his knees aren't bothering him so badly. So
right on.
See, okay. MVP was the first IWGP IC champion. I thought it was
thank you, Brad.
Thank you. I thought it was him, but then I was like, maybe I'm confusing him with Shelton because I knew it was one of them.
That's awesome.
And so Lauren says the Hurt Syndicate would do really well in AEW in the Trios division.
Oh, there you go.
That would be fun. I would say if they could get Cedric away, that would be great. But Cedric, and I don't know that I would see Cedric coming because of what happened to his wife.
Well, yeah.
And AEW, I think that I would see Cedric going to Japan. That's where I would like to see him go. I don't see him ever coming to AEW ever, unless Tony like makes a public apology, because his child got death threats. So I don't see.
Yikes.
I don't see Cedric ever coming.
Guys, death threats are never okay.
No, because they were giving them. Swole was getting death threats, but I saw them because I follow her, and was screenshotting them, and she was their
disagree with somebody.
Child got death threats multiple times. Like this wasn't just a one-off. Like multiple times, and this happened for months after she.
That's
was
the dumpster fire of the comments that I can't stand about social. Yeah. That's why I have to turn it off sometimes. I'm just like, you're being too dumb. I can't. All of you, not just wrestling Twitter, the whole social timeline, crazy, like, in what world do you sit back and go, I'm going to make a death threat because I don't agree with somebody's take on an experience that they had?
First of all, and I've said it a million times, she didn't say what they accused her of saying. Like, I'm like, if you go listen to the interview, you will see. Yeah, Lady B, I see your comment. I will get to that. And I was going to talk about it. So yes, I will get to that in just a second, because that is part of this conversation. I wanted to get the other stuff out of the way. Nikki said she knew it was Marina before she even turned around because she knew that Mox wanted to work with her. And it was funny. Somebody was like, Mox made her wear shoes. I went back and watched it.
I saw that too. Because I thought of you two immediately because you guys have been. I mean, we talked about it, but especially you and Nikki, were like, "It needs to be her. It needs to be her. They need it." So when she walked in, I was like, "Oh, it's." And
it took me a second. Nikki figured it out before I did.
I couldn't think of her name. It was driving me crazy. I called her Masha Slamovich. I'm like, no, not Masha. It took me a minute. I'm like, the other one.
Yeah, and Brad said that Mox finally gets to work with Marina. I love that for him. I'm very interested to see what's going on with this new shooter style group he's doing. Yeah, because somebody wondered if he would bring in Josh Barnett, and I was like, I don't think so, but perhaps they'll do. I could see this being a thing that they bring to Revolver maybe, and doing some more stuff there, and perhaps, but I'm really interested. I'm excited to see where this goes. Lauren says Danielson was not wrong to have women in the BCC. Shafir, or was wrong not to have women. Shafir made sense as a member, and so did Deeb. I even, before she got injured and was mostly in ROH, I even said Layla Hirsch would have been a good fit for them doing that type, because she does a lot of the technical style of wrestling. And I thought that she would even be a really good fit. And so we will get to Lady B's comment, because yes, I have heard this. So the day after the show after that Brian Alvarez did, the day after Dynamite, or maybe it was the show episode, whatever, the episode after Dynamite, whether it was that night or the next day, Brian Alvarez claims that Danielson's new, Moxley's news character is based off of a little. Apparently, it's a big film in Australia. It's a movie called Romper Stomper that has.
I know. Yes, yeah.
And that's where this comes from.
Yikes!
However,
that's quite a movie.
Yeah. If you are not aware, it is. It's about the downfall of a neo-Nazi group, which is. And it makes it sound like Mox's character.
That's in it. Oh my
could
God,
potentially be based off of it's Russell Crowe. That's who's in it. I was blanking on his name. Russell Crowe is in this movie.
Yeah, but it's like from forever. I mean, that's a like 90s. I can remember watching that like indie films. That's like Shallow Grave, and like those were like the indie films from the late 90s.
Right.
Where that was with Train Spotting, that kind of those hardcore really. It's intense. That's I hadn't even thought about that movie in the longest time. I only listened to Garrett this week.
I was not familiar with it at all, but then some people pointed out
but that's true. That's interesting.
Well, some people have pointed out that Brian Alvarez does not see a lot of movies, and for him to make that reference is kind of a stretch and a bit. I don't know if this is true, but for him to say that, they were like, you're kind of putting out information that Jon Moxley is playing is playing a neo-Nazi character when he may not have anything to do with that at all. And they were saying that's a little dangerous of Brian Alvarez to just put that out there, because we don't know that that's where this came from. But he, from apparently what Alvarez says is, I don't think he just straight up said, oh, that's where it came from. But I guess he's hinting at the fact that that's where it came from, which is a little dangerous to put that out there, especially because of tribalists on the internet are already saying Jon Moxley is playing a neo-Nazi, because that's how he's down bad not being in WWE, that he's jumped to playing a neo-Nazi. I've already seen it. As soon as that came out, within hours, I saw people saying that Jon Moxley was playing a neo-Nazi because Brian Alvarez said that. And I was like, I gotta be careful.
Because people which maybe what they want to hear.
Maybe that is where that character comes from. It's certainly possible that he's inspired by it, not that he's playing that character. Perhaps it did inspire him. Brad makes a point here that he's not sure if he believes that 100%, but Razor Ramon was inspired by Scarface, and Stone Cold was inspired by a real serial killer he saw a documentary about. Perhaps
inspiration comes from weird places. I will say that.
Maybe he was inspired by Russell Crowe's performance, not necessarily the neo-Nazi portion.
Maybe
of it. However, that is kind of, you gotta be real careful with that type of stuff. I mean, we just saw.
Where does Brian? My concern was saying something like that is like. And not having context. I mean, Brian could have very well said, it reminds me of the character in Romper Stomper. And that could have been the end of the quote. And everybody blew it out of proportion. Or he could have said, I've been told, or I'm getting blah, 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 or whatever. It's like,
right.
Is he making that assumption on his own? Is he making
from the way that, because I can't remember the exact quote, but from the way I read it, he is assuming that's where the character, he was like, oh, Jon Moxley's new character is inspired by Russell Crowe and Romper Stomper, especially because he said there was where he told Tony Schiavone this isn't his company anymore. There is a line where Russell Crowe says to an Asian couple, this isn't your country anymore, which is very problematic, obviously. And I don't know if he heard that line and saw Jon Moxley with a shaved head and was like,
what it reminded him of.
Right. And again, maybe it was taken out of context, but that's just.
I mean, I can see the connection now that somebody brought it up. It wasn't the first thing I thought of. Yeah. I just thought of him being like, this is serious. Like for me, when I saw him, I thought he was going for old school deathmatch wrestler.
I just thought he was going for heel Jon Moxley and Jon Moxley that we've seen.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that would be a heel for him. He just, it had like Onita, you know what I mean? It had Onita vibes for me.
And so that's how I took, of course, I have not seen that movie, so I would not have had any frame of reference.
I have seen it, but it wasn't what popped. Because of Moxley's history with like deathmatch and shoot wrestling and stuff, and because I've watched a bunch of that because it's fun.
Right.
The first thing I thought of was like, I just lost his name, who just passed away recently. Terry Funk and Bruiser Brody, and I got that vibe more than I got.
Right. Sure.
That was just me.
And
I just me.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, oh hell yeah, we're getting Hill Moxley. Then I see the stuff with Marina, and I was like, oh yeah, we're definitely getting Hill Moxley.
Yeah,
it's gonna be more like what but of course, but I haven't seen that movie, so I didn't have anything to compare that to. And I saw people comparing it to Kim Possible because of what he was wearing. It was the black shirt with the green pants. I saw quite a few Kim Possible references, and so that's why I was completely caught off guard by the Russell
He
Crowe.
could essentially do with Marina what he did with Shooter when he was in the G1. Like but for her.
I think that's what he's wanting to do, because
their version.
Yes. Yeah. That's where I feel like this is going. Lady
Which
B
would be amazing.
Yes, agreed. That Brian's pop culture knowledge is, dare I say, limited. Haha. So I assumed what Brian said was accurate, because that's definitely something he had to be told. Yeah. So
okay, fair enough. That's a great point, because they really don't. Him and Dave do not have.
Yeah,
guys, go to a movie, and not a movie about wrestling, like a movie about something else. Go to I mean, Dave says that he used to go to soccer games. I'm like, can you go back to doing that? The earthquakes are there. Like, you're good.
Yeah. So perhaps maybe he is inspired by him, but I was like, let's not just willy-nilly put this information out there, but maybe he had been told it and that's what he's just going by. I don't know. That is a little concerning.
That's an intense comparison to me.
I do trust Jon Moxley enough to know what he's doing, so I will just wait a little bit longer to see kind of what he's doing, and then perhaps it's a discussion we circle back to in 3 or 4 weeks.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe Jon Moxley just comes out and I don't know. I don't think he'll just come out and say it because he's a character and he's not gonna. Jon Moxley just kayfabes everything, but
I don't know. I question that because it doesn't. It seemed more like that. Like I immediately was thinking like Sakuraba and Onita and shoot wrestling and just Albright. I was like, oh, he's going back to because that's like his vibe. And so
I just thought he was doing his New Japan / Revolver.
Which is essentially like a version of that.
Perhaps maybe that's still where he's going with it, but with this Russell Crowe character kind of inspiring certain choices and things like that. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how that turns out, but it is something to keep in mind and something that we need to kind of keep an eye on.
It's such a weird comparison.
Yeah, so
I haven't thought about it. It's just so funny because I hadn't even thought about it.
I've seen that.
It brings me back to my edgelord indie watching days. So gotta watch all those.
That sounds and that again going back to
watch all the gritty edgelord underground films that were made for
sounds like
back in '96.
Sounds like another indie gimmick, like we were talking about earlier.
For sure.
Laurent says, Who would Marina target as part of Moxley's faction?
Yuta.
Lady Frost was the first person I thought of. I don't know if she's a baby face, but just Lady Frost has that type of.
Lady Frost is good.
She is just because her style of wrestling. I don't know why that was the first person I thought of. I mean, I would assume it probably. I could see it being a bigger name, someone they use more regularly, but for whatever reason, Lady Frost is just who I thought of. Perhaps if they add another woman, I would not mind seeing Lady Frost being brought into that faction, because Lady Frost she's very good. She's hard hitting. Aminata would be she is very hard hitting too. Like that would. So even a feud with Marina and Aminata would be. I would like to see that because they're both in ROH together too. So Marina has been having squash matches in ROH the last few weeks but she has a new move called Mother's Milk, which is an aggressive submission move where she turns them in, and so their face is near her chest. She kisses them on the head and then locks in the submission and beats them. So perhaps that's why she's got this new finisher, is because she's been testing it out on the ROH indie wrestlers. And now she's gonna perfect it and bring it to the main roster. So it'll be really interesting. Jermaine makes the point that he doubts that Mox and Marina are doing a parody of Romper Stomper. I believe it's more of the old school WWE Underground Fight Club, and I think Shane might be part of it. I hope Shane McMahon is not part of it. I don't want Shane McMahon.
I've heard that stuff going around too.
Do not want Shane McMahon involved in AEW. We talked about this several weeks ago about why, and it is very bad optics. Just we do not,
especially with
first of all, you don't
we started out the show talking about that reason alone is a reason to stay as far away from the McMahon name as you can.
Yeah, we don't need especially that his dad's gonna
know that he's not part of that lawsuit,
or that he's gonna. I assume he's gonna be. He would be if it goes to trial. He will likely be subpoenaed. He's his son.
Yeah,
like we don't. And again, also, we talked about a few weeks ago, as an alternative, you do not need a McMahon. If you are an alternative to AEW, you do not need a McMahon.
I really hope that talk is just talk. I don't like it.
I think fans are just running with it because they leaked that picture, and the picture was supposed to have probably been brought up at SummerSlam, and it was not. They talked about other stuff as well. Brad says, I'm thinking it's more like Mox is bringing in Josh Barnett. They're doing shooter gimmick, like a shooter gimmick. Like I feel like we're getting, like even if Josh Barnett is not involved, I feel like we're getting like a blood sport type, because Marina has wrestled at blood sport too. If I'm right, didn't she do? Yeah. She's in two blood sport, right? Okay, yeah, right.
Last two.
So I could see that being that type of a thing. Brad says he should add Workhorseman and Josh Woods. I would love to see Workhorseman being a part of that. I hope that Workhorseman, I still have not heard. I don't know what the return date is for James Drake or JD Drake. Have to remember to call him JD Drake because now James Drake is here with GYV, and I just want to point out,
right,
JD Drake had to change his name. His real name, his shoot name is James Drake. He had to change it because WWE signed James Drake. And so that's why he is JD Drake now, because of James Drake. And so every time I hear James Drake, I think, oh, Workhorseman, and then it's GYV every time. And they wrestled each other in DPW. So I need that match to be ran back when he's healthy. And also, I keep joking that they need to do James Drake versus JD Drake in the battle for the name James Drake.
I like it. James Drake on a pole.
Yeah, exactly. James Drake on a pole.
Why not? I love it. Let's go.
Yeah,
I'm here for it.
And speaking of DPW, they are finally coming back to Charlotte. They just announced it a few days ago. They are coming to Grady Cole Center, which is where Ashe ran their first show. Yeah. And then Grady Cole has a ton of wrestling history. That's where a lot of 70s and 80s wrestling was happened in Grady Cole. So it's a very historic building. Very excited. And then I was hoping, I saw that and I was like, man, I hope Workhorsemen are going to be cleared. And then Anthony quote tweeted it and just said #Workhorsemen. And I was like, please let Workhorsemen be cleared.
Cool.
It's a Saturday. So. Hopefully they don't get booked for Collision / ROH tapings.
Yeah. Right.
Hopefully they'll be able to, if they're booked for it, they get to keep it. So we'll see. But Nikki said she calls him fake James Drake. She can confirm.
You should call him James Fake.
There you go. That's his name now.
Okay.
And that is no offense to him because I like GYV, but
no, it's fine. But also, he's not the real one. So.
He's not the real one.
And it will help you. Like it'll help your brain function. Like you'll get.
There we go.
You have a trick with your brain, so you don't get confused all the time.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Just call him James Fake.
Yes. And also,
it even rhymes.
It does rhyme. And
I mean. That sounds like something that WWE would come up with for a name for somebody.
It does.
It might even be more clever than some of the names they come up with people.
And then also, speaking of DPW, they have announced already that Kenta is coming. And this is supposed to be, apparently they're saying this is going to be a very big show, one of the biggest shows they've ever done. They're bringing people in. I don't know what that means. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, wait, I have not seen Kenta. I have, however, seen Hideo Itami. I've seen him when I went to NXT in South Carolina a few years ago. I did see Hideo Itami, but I have not seen him as Kenta. Nikki said, she said, I call him fake James Drake. Sorry, I didn't mean to click that one again. And she said, James Drake number 2, like Darius Carter says Darius Lockhart is Darius number 2. Mm-hmm. Yes, we do have the Darius number 2 here, so we can have James number 2 in AEW.
That's right.
Nikki said, God, I hope we get Suzuki too, especially because it's Suzuki, but since Nikki and I did not get to meet Suzuki when he was here last time.
I will be sending Suzuki vibes to your wrestling
we put it out in the universe then that we would somehow, some way,
come back around,
and then we would get to meet him. So we're putting that out in the universe. I hope that happens. But yes, so yeah, where were we at? Then the other big story this week was Swerve. Swerve got paid, and
the internet blew up about it.
And apparently the internet, some part of the internet's big mad about that. Because why the hell should wrestlers get paid their worth? We don't do that here.
Because, Sam, it makes the market competitor for people that aren't necessarily at the top of the card. He was just champion. And therefore, it means the WWE might have to pay some of their wrestlers more money.
That would be a travesty if WWE had to pay people their worth.
A friend of mine put it yesterday, is with all of that billions of dollars, how could they possibly part with the money? I mean, what was their worth? Like, there's just, even with everything that's going on, it's like, how are they ever going to find the cash?
How will they
ever find the cash to pay their
now
employees
they have to use that cash to pay PR.
What they're worth.
PR lessons. How dare you?
It's kind of is a universal problem with corporations, is they don't want to pay their employees what they're worth, and they're making money.
That's what they were saying. They were like,
hand over fist. And it's like, you guys are getting, you're getting windfalls, you're getting corporate stock buybacks, you're getting all this money, and you're big mad because somebody, we can't have an employee being paid what they're worth. If they start that over there, then we'll have to do that over here. And then that'll just keep spreading. And people will actually have to be treated with dignity and respect.
Yes, and I've seen so many people in the replies, they're like, you're mad that he's getting paid, yet you don't get paid what you're worth at your own hourly job. And you're mad that they're like, there's a lot of projection going on here, that you don't get paid what you're worth, therefore nobody else should get paid what they're worth.
Hey, I got an idea. Dear corporations and people in charge of businesses, pay people. I mean, it's just that simple. Stop being greedy and pay people.
Right. Just pay people what they're worth.
You would be shocked at how much better America would suddenly act and respond if they actually had enough money to survive day to day.
Yeah, wow. Maybe we should go take a look at some other countries where that does happen.
It was
and
so
they have
stupid what went on this. I couldn't, when I saw what was going on, I was like, is this really the issue? And then I did listen to Dave and Garrett, and sure enough, Garrett's like, yeah, apparently paying people what they're worth is just bad for business.
And if it turned, and some people have pointed out, well, it's only Dave Meltzer who says that WWE says that they're paying, sure, maybe he and Sean Rossap was like, I have not heard. He said, I haven't heard this, but it doesn't mean that Dave didn't, and it doesn't mean that somebody else didn't say it. And he was like, stop being mean. He was like, I personally just am saying I have not heard that, but it basically would not surprise me if that was said. Then he put out, so he did. Then Sean Rossap went around and apparently reached out to people within WWE, did not get a comment back, but he heard from other talent who were like, That's amazing. Good for him. He deserves it. Like, he was like, and that part was unanimous across the board.
Well, of course it was, because that's good for every wrestler, because Swerve is listen, he was just a champion, did an amazing job. The story between him and Hangman is not over. He's fantastic. He's really built himself up into that. I know a lot of, why'd they pay a mid-carder all that money? I'm like, bro,
he was
stay in your lane.
He had the main title in that company.
Stay in your lane.
Quit being mad that he's getting paid. Let him get paid. WWE wasn't going to pay it, so good for him.
I don't like.
I tweeted it the other day. Whatever they're paying Swerve, he deserves whatever it is. There are rumors that he is making what Mercedes and Okada makes now.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate that is, but whatever it is, he deserves
That's
it.
awesome.
He has put in the work. He has proven himself.
Exactly.
Him and Nana are over as hell. I hope Nana got a pay raise too.
I think WWE's mad because that report also included the fact that WWE made a play for them, both of them.
A second time. And
they said no. So I think this is more, it's hard to it's hard to not, and because bot attacks are a thing that companies use on each other, it's hard to not buy in a little bit to the idea that there is some sort of botting and stuff going on with these kinds of things when this happens, where social media is getting flooded with, WWE has plenty of
Tony has said it for years that WWE uses bots. I have seen it personally myself because they are using it when it comes
easy to figure out if it's a bot.
With the Vince and Janelle stuff. Because I tweeted that thing about fuck the New York Post. It had 20 something likes when I went to bed. The next day I woke up and it was over 800, and my replies were filled with angry men who were all, and then we looked into it a little bit, and these accounts had been taken over because they weren't being used anymore, and there were plenty of bots accounts. So they do absolutely pay for bots.
This is exactly what they did during the 2016 campaign, and nobody made it illegal. They made a big deal of it. It got public outcry and scrutiny, and then the thing went away because that's how it works. Mm-hmm. This has been going on I'm sure it's going on right now, this very minute with the elections, but this was going on in 2016. Huge. And I was witnessing it. So when I see certain kinds of I'm okay, well, look at the account, look at the distance between when they signed up and whenever. There's so many things that just, if you're on there long enough, you can totally tell. So it makes me wonder when things like this happen, where they make something out of what's essentially a non-story. Swerve got paid. What's the problem?
Some of it, I do think has been driven by bots, and I think the conversations did drive it even more. But their tribalism is so bad that it would not surprise me if it started out as a tribalistic thing, and then they were like, let's hammer this some more and let's get some bots on this.
Because they saw that their fan base was reacting, so they reacted in accordance with that.
I could certainly see that being the case. And then
that's the dumbest thing. I had to laugh out. I was like, really? Yeah. This is what all the fuss is about? Yeah. And it was such a I don't know. Yeah. It's just such a quick reference in the Observer that he makes to it. It's a very quick.
And I guess it's because Swerve was seen sign the contract on air on 0 hour.
Well, and then somebody I think got caught in the microphone at the end of his promo saying, and he just got paid at the end of a show, and it got caught in the audio before they went off air. And so that was part of the reason that I think.
Well, good for him for just getting paid. Yeah, and what was interesting,
someone was cheering him on was the best part of that. I thought that was
right. They're hyping him up as they should. So
they're now we can get paid too.
Right, and so there was this fun. This thing happened yesterday with Raj Giri.
Oh, jeez.
Who owns he used to own the website one of the websites I currently write for. He does not own them anymore. He sold them to somebody else, so thankfully And I made it real clear that if he comes back, I'm out. So I was like,
I
wouldn't even agree to an interview until I've found out for sure that there was no way
no involvement
he could come
anymore.
back. So apparently he tweeted, and I screenshot it, but he tweeted and said something with the story about WWE making a play for Swerve and Nana doesn't make sense. On the latest Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer said that Swerve still had plenty of time left on his current deal, so his new AEW deal is more like an extension. So WWE made a play for someone with a lot of time left of their contract. Doesn't sound right. Swerve responded and asked him if he would like to see the text messages. And Raj Giri deleted his tweet.
Of course he did.
But I screenshot it.
That's what cowards do.
Because it came up and they're like, oh, he deleted it, but it was still showing it to me. So I screenshot it before I could see it.
Fantastic. Good.
So I could read it for today and just have it for future purposes. I need
you
it.
Never know when you're going to need something like that.
Never know, but I've got it. And so
now
I'm sure a lot of other people screenshot it too. But yeah, he said, so it made me laugh because Swerve was like, do you want to see the text? This is the second time this has happened. Swerve said that it happened a couple of years ago and he didn't even respond. He sent it directly to Tony and said, basically was like, look at this. And Tony was like, we're not doing this. And so this is 2 times that they have tried to get Swerve to come back. And he has told them no. And so
if he sucks so much, why do they want him back so bad? I love that argument. It's so funny. It's like I just took the wind out of your freaking sails right there.
Yeah.
They made an offer twice for him and he said no.
Right.
And then Tony went, here's a big paycheck for you because you just did an awesome program and busted your ass and became a huge star and carried the belt. And we want to keep you around because you're awesome.
Yeah. And outside of the women's division, your feud with Hangman is the best thing that we're doing. Is probably going to end up being one of the best feuds in AEW history. It's already turning out to be
there's still
one of the
more.
best feuds. Yeah, they're still, and they're getting
it's not over. That's the one thing. I mean, he took the time out to go fight Bryan Danielson, but that feud is still.
And we found out why Hangman's was gone because Swerve, which I didn't think about. I have the screenshot of this tweet as well. So in the promo that they cut on Wednesday on Dynamite, he said, you thought that I saw you walking down the steps with your pregnant wife and helping her into the car. And so now we know that's why Hangman was gone. His wife was giving birth to a second child. Nobody knew that. But that was not public information until Swerve said it. And I saw this tweet that said, Hangman never acknowledging why he went away and that he'd had a second child only for Swerve. The reason he's now keeping his family out of things to blow it wide open within seconds was a monumentally brilliant bit of detail that basically sums up the entire story and hatred. And somebody replied, and you add in the layer that he moved his family into secret to protect them from Swerve and thought that he had just for Swerve to tell Hangman that he felt again that Swerve knows everything and was there watching the whole time. Like,
amazing.
It just incredible levels of storytelling that they're doing here. And they're not letting it get stale. They are not letting up. They are making it interesting and keeping your interest there. They're showing you that Hangman is not the bad guy. Hangman has every right to be mad at Swerve. Swerve broke into his home. And now we find out Swerve has been monitored. Swerve followed him, knows where he lives now. He told nobody where he was at. Swerve figured it out, has been watching them, knows that he has had a second child, and has now told everybody that he has had a second child, which nobody knew about. So we're just adding just extra layers to the story. And now that Swerve doesn't have the title anymore, he doesn't necessarily have to be the good guy anymore. He doesn't have to be a baby face. The title is gone. And so now we are getting them in a steel cage match on Saturday, which is the natural progression for the story. And I cannot wait to see this match. I can't wait to see where the story goes.
Awesome.
Swerve deserves every cent that he is going to be making over this with this updated contract, new contract, however you word it. He deserves it. Again, I hope Nana got paid too. I hope Hangman is getting paid very well with the storyline, because Hangman's character arcs since day one have just been incredible to see. But this is easily the best that Hangman has ever been. And that's saying something, because Anxious Millennial Cowboy is somebody that resonated with so many fans and got him to the level of popularity that he is at. And then this feud with Swerve has just launched him and Swerve both into another level. And I love this feud. So outside of the women's division, this is my favorite feud and has been since the beginning. This feud has and it's increasingly gotten better. And I just really excited for this match.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad. I mean, congratulations to him.
Yeah.
And all the naysayers
absolutely.
can say nay all they want to, but
yeah, pay
you're
your
not
wrestlers
as good. I guess
worth.
I'm sorry, you're not as good a wrestler as Swerve.
I guess that's it.
Just that's sad day
and
for you.
I have seen, and it's interesting because, and I'm not surprised because, other wrestlers want to get paid too. I have seen nothing but wrestlers being like, good for him. This is how it should be.
Good for us.
Good for everybody. Because they have made, they have talked about, obviously Mercedes is the highest paid women's wrestler in North America. And Becky Lynch has reportedly asked for a lot more money because of, I mean, that's good.
Well,
and that's
this
what
helps her too. Every time a
Right.
wrestler every time a talent gets paid like this, it's just like any other sport. It ups the market.
Right. It helps. Right.
Competition.
Exactly. If you want wrestling to be treated like a sport, then you're gonna have to. This is the things that you do to treat
if you want to
like
be in business, you're going to have to deal with a little thing called competition once in a while. And I know you're not really used to that because you've been the dominating force for the last 40 years. And you have set
the tone. You've set the tone for what people get paid. But now there is somebody else here who can pay their wrestlers. And somebody tried to, I guess there was some comment about, they were like, well, Tony's just paying them because he can. He should. And so what is your argument?
That's okay. My counter argument to that is Vince McMahon went on a buying spree as soon as AEW went up and just hired every single freaking wrestler from here to attorney because he could, so that Tony couldn't get them.
Yeah, and then they sat on the roster, on a bloated roster for years. And then you have it got brought up recently about how WWE is saying they're going to stick with 5-match pay-per-view or PLEs because it works for them. But I saw a tweet and they were talking about how that goes back to Mason Mansour talking about that bucket thing. Let me see if I can find, I retweeted it the other day, so let me see if I can find it. But it was talking about how they're paid in this certain way. Give me a second. Let me see. I think... Hold on.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Brad saying, you ever notice how GYV looks like Silver and
Reynolds? Yeah, I saw that. We had already moved on, but I saw
know
it.
It's funny.
Great.
It's funny. I had it.
That was very funny.
I wanted to make sure
Yes. Okay, so here is...
That's hilarious.
Wait, I think I'm almost on it. Wait, where did it go? Okay, yeah. So the quote says Mason Mansour add that if a superstar is shifting merch and it looks like their bucket might overflow, they will suddenly stop being booked at live events. That means the bucket will start to fill more slowly and reduce the chance of them earning extra money. It's an interesting system that has pros and cons. Obviously, guaranteed money so wrestlers continue to earn a wage even if they are hurt or not on TV every week is a good thing. But WWE actively trying to stifle its own bonus system so its employees can't make more than that isn't great. So then that goes back to this 5-match PLE. They're purposely not booking people. So sure, sometimes I get irritated with 8-man matches on AEW pay-per-views. But on the other hand, especially if I'm having to cover them because it's a
Yeah.
lot to keep up with. But on the
Sure.
other hand, they are getting their talent is getting paid. And people, especially if they're in a new country, like in the UK, where they don't get to see them as much, they are stacking it with as much talent as possible that they don't get to see, that they've never seen. Some of that talent they've never seen before. So they're making sure the fans get the full AEW experience and get to see as much talent as possible. But you have talent getting paid, and then if you go back to that format, then they are stifling people from getting paid, which is crazy.
But it wouldn't surprise me just because of their business tactics. I mean, that's the way that's the way they do business. I mean,
it's how they've always done it. And
this exposes them, and that's the bottom line. The fact that they had such a freak out just tells me that it exposes the fact that you're not paying people, and that everybody knows it now.
Well, and
the cat's out of the bag, brother.
We knew it before, and Raphael, my editor, Daily DDT, has been saying this since Endeavor bought WWE and TKO happened, that this was going to start happening because Endeavor did the same thing to MMA fighters and stifled their pay to the point that people were just walking out because they were not going to get there's a maximum that they were going to get paid no matter what, and they were never going to get paid more than that no matter how much money they were bringing in.
Walk out with that settlement, and that judge said no, this isn't enough
right
money.
Yeah, right.
So now they're back in the negotiation situation because they were doing that. And even if that settlement goes through, depending on how much they end up owing their fighters, because the judge is like, no, this isn't going to do it, which means go back to the drawing board, which they have a right to do. Settlements have to be approved by the judge. What does it mean if, like, even if they settle, what does that mean for everybody? It sort of reinforces, again, I think the reason they lashed out at this, which was probably a poor move on their part, is because of that very thing, is that judge and that settlement and the because that's all about competition and stealing wages from employees.
Yeah, right.
So and then Brad, they're going to react when they see somebody competing and paying their employees. They're going to get really bad.
Right. So Brad says the fact that WWE pays the talent 7% of the revenue while AEW pays 55 to 60% says so much about both companies pay talent their worth. And even Cody has even said before, like when Dark and Elevation were around, that he was like, the amount of money that these unsigned indie talent are making, or these people who are on, they have tier levels, and I think there's like a 0 tier, which is like you come in and do squash matches basically, and then there's like a level 1, and then it goes up. And Cody was like if my dad saw what these talent were making, he would lose it. Like he just would not. It would blow his mind that we are paying unsigned talent. That Tony Khan is like, no, we're gonna pay these people this amount of money. And so
they can come in and be on TV and do a match in their local area. And I mean, when they're here, they have like Allison Kay and stuff on shows, and she gets huge props here because she's like part of the. So, yay! She got a big giant paycheck, got to be on TV, and she's fun. Like, let's go.
And then ROH talent's getting paid well. Or fairly well, from what I understand. I mean, I don't know how well, but they're getting paychecks too, and they're getting paid. It sounds like they're making decent money. I don't know what decent money is. Maybe it's not the same that in it, because apparently NXT wrestlers get I think a base of I
heard 25K.
That's what I've heard too. And
I'm like, bro, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much the lowest. It's only a few $1,000s off of being just poor.
Right.
And what they actually consider in the tiering of, because I mean, our system is messed up, but they're falling. I mean, they're almost at the poverty line paying them that.
Right. And then some people, so then there was the rumor that WWE was going to move the PC to Vegas. And I have heard that. I heard that a couple of months ago
Yeah.
And Voices of Wrestling are standing behind their reporting. Fightful says that it's not true, that they aren't moving. But I heard that like 2 months ago that they were moving to Nevada or to Las Vegas to be in the same complex as UFC, cost-cutting measures. If
they better
so,
be paying people better, because it's a lot cheaper to live in Florida than it is to live in
and what I was
going
to say, if this ends up being true, if they do at some point end up moving the PC to Las Vegas, I was talking to a few people about this. The best guess was that WWE would pay staff to relocate, but not wrestlers, because wrestlers are independent contractors. And so the wrestlers themselves would have to pay out of pocket to either move to Las Vegas and be close by, or they would have to pay to travel to Vegas every single week. That was their consensus, was because they're independent contractors, that would most likely be what happens if it gets to that point.
Well, no wonder they're mad about a guy who's got a guy signed to a contract who's paying him what he's like.
Right. And so they're
just come on.
Yeah. So that's
keep up the good work, Swerve, and everybody like you. Keep getting paid, keep earning it, keep doing the work. Like,
I'll go back to, there's some other comments that I will get to, and I'll read them in just a second. No, the rumor is, because he said, would they move the PC or have two facilities, because that would suck for the talent. The rumor that I heard is that TNA will move into the Florida PC, that they will have shows at Full Sail like NXT currently does, that TNA would be moving into that building.
I heard that too, but
and that has come from a different source than the original source. So I've heard from a couple different sources about this impending move. If again, I know Fightful says it's not true. Voices of Wrestling has said that they've reached out after that story came out from Fightful. They reached back out to their person, but I didn't hear it from anybody from Voices of Wrestling. I heard it from somebody else. Again, the whole thing could be, but that's just the story that I've heard for the last couple of months.
I knew that. I know that rumor that's out in the rumor mill. How about that? Because I had also heard something like that about both of those things. I've heard. So who knows? It's wrestling.
Yeah. So Brad says he knows the owner of FSW in Vegas. He used to say that he'd have talent that pulled off of shows to work dark, and he never minded because Tony always paid them so much more, and FSW pays well. This says that ROH has not been paid well. Most are paid per appearance. It depends on again, it goes back to the tier level that they're on. And you are correct. It was Slim J that said that he had to work multiple jobs and because ROH did not pay enough when he was there, which I have heard that. So I think, again, it goes back to the tiers that there supposedly are. That's what it's always been. I've heard that there's like I said, there's like a zero tier, tier 1, and then it goes up from there. And I think there's like several tiers, and then apparently Jericho is in his own tier because he's the highest paid wrestler in AEW. So, and I don't know if that's changed with Okada and Mercedes. I think they get paid a lot, but I think that they still get paid less than Jericho, but I'm not.
I can't see him being okay with being like.
I'm not 100% positive on that. But from my understanding, Jericho is still the highest paid, the highest paid wrestler. And then I think it moved. Let me go back. There are a couple other comments that I saw here that WWE is in the business of making as much money as possible, and AEW is not the same business. No, but it doesn't make it right. I don't care that they have stockholders to answer to. They should still be they should be paying their talent what they're worth, as every wrestling company should be. AEW, TNA, New Japan. New Japan was losing out on wrestlers because they couldn't afford to keep them.
That's exactly why they lost them.
It should be everywhere. And I know they're two separate businesses, but that doesn't mean that WWE makes way more money and should be paying their talent way more money at all levels of their company. Lady B says, because AEW is private, how do people know the percentages of how much they are paying wrestlers? Maybe I'm not trusting in general. I want to see numbers and figures. I get that. I can't remember off the top of my head where that figure came from, Lady B. I can't remember where I have seen that figure before, but I have heard just, I guess, conversations that have come out with wrestlers who are no longer there. I think maybe is where some of that information has come from, but it is, yes, and of course, yeah, I heard that the Sports Business Journal said that NXT typically get between 50,000 and 150K. There was something that came out recently that it's actually that NXT talent makes 25,000. I think is something that I have seen. So I don't know if this was just
I believe that's what Dave was talking to Garrett about on Friday, was that report was inaccurate because that was not
right. I mean, and they were also saying that apparently Paul Levesque was telling certain talent that they made like $300,000 on the main roster. Like, obviously certain wrestlers, not like obviously like your Randy Ortons and your Codys and your Romans get paid way more than that, but like certain other people making, which I hope they make six figures on the main roster. They should. I hope the NXT, I hope that $25,000 number is wrong. I hope that they make 50,000.
It should. I don't
Lord
think
knows
it better be wrong,
but I hope that they do, because being paid $50,000 as a NXT wrestler who's just starting out, that would be huge for them, and I hope they get paid that. But from my understanding,
if your
number isn't correct, but perhaps that may be my information that is not correct, which is certainly possible.
Florida is one of the lowest property tax rates in the country. It's like Carney land. It's like there used
that's
to be
why the PC's there.
It is there, and it's also there because they have a history of the people. There's a town that used to be in Florida that was where all the carnies from all over the country would go and live, because it was the only place that allowed them. There's places, it's a spot you can still park an elephant. It's amazing. And it was because Florida was warm and it was accepting of the carnival culture, and so they have a whole town, and I think it's like a historic site. I don't know, it's Florida, but where all of the people that used to work for circuses and festivals, and that's where they would live, is in this area. And that's so Florida has a long history with just carnival performers and like living there anyway. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they keep their tax rates low, obviously, for all the reasons, because they make money off tourism and Walt Disney World. But moving to Vegas is expensive. Like, even if you like Henderson or something, like, that's expensive, because that's where people are going instead of Florida and California now to retire.
And I thought about it. If there's some other comments I would get back to in just a second, but I
there for years.
If it ends up being true, if the PC of NXT does move to Vegas, Motor City Machine Guns, if they go to NXT, they're not going to move to Vegas. They will pay to fly themselves. I mean, I don't think they'll move to Florida either. I mean, honestly, I don't think
Florida's easier to get to from Metro than
I don't think they'll move
Vegas,
from Detroit. I assume they'll pay to fly themselves in. But Vegas would be closer to the Lucha Brothers, because Lucha Brothers, I believe, are in California. I know they're in and out of Mexico as well. And they're in California, so that would be just a few hour drive for them. So I was thinking about that, should that, if this is the case, and because you're thinking, obviously, how does this affect wrestlers and affording and traveling and things like that? And I was like, well, for the Lucha Brothers,
I'm a grown-up, I have my own house and bills. My first thought is those people have families, they have bills, and that's expensive.
They do. So I do want to come back over here. There's some comments that Brad says that Tony, working for two major league sports teams, knows how salaries work, so he's running AEW more like a sports franchise when it comes to talent wages, which I agree with. And then Brad says that he thinks the reports about the percentages came from Brandon Thurston, whose main job is to report on these things, or Forbes in their article about AEW's valuation. Then we have this comment that $25,000 could be the NIL deals, which is certainly possible. WWE is paying them while they're in school, but he doesn't know because he hasn't seen, or they haven't seen that number, which, maybe that's where where the mix up is coming from. Maybe people are assuming it's NXT when it's actually NIL. Which that's a fair point. Thank you for bringing that up.
And that would make more sense.
So thank you for bringing that up, because that's a very fair
really good point.
because they are
signing.
So good for it, which I am glad to see that some of these, that the NIL program is being done in WWE as well, and that these talent are getting paid, which I think that's a really cool thing, and I hope that
these universities are making enough money off
out.
These kids, they may as well be able to
right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
there.
I hope and I'm glad that wrestling is part of it, that they're not just sticking to like the football players and the basketball players and things like that, that they are expanding for the wrestlers, because I know Mark Henry's son is on the NIL deal, and there are, I think there's twin sisters that I believe they were gymnasts or are gymnasts.
Right? Yeah, they've been talking about them, and I can't remember their names, but yes,
yeah, they're on. I believe they're on the NIL deal as well. I think I want to say, which is great because we've seen that gymnasts seem to be able to parlay that into wrestling fairly well for the most part, because Julia Hart is a former wrestler, a former gymnast, and obviously Bianca's a former track runner.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And she was bodybuilding and things like that. So we do see that this comment says, I doubt that they're going to move to Vegas. WWE has a lot of money invested in the PC. Very true. As far as talent traveling to NXT for shows, NXT, according to HBK, is now flying talent into shows for TV. Oh, really?
I hope
hope that he is. That would be incredible if they
That's
are,
awesome.
and they should. So
they
I
should
hope
be.
so. I hope so. But
so
I really don't know.
I mean, that's come on.
Yeah, I really don't. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do end up moving to Vegas because of Endeavor and TKO.
Well, the
they
TKO
put it all on one thing, and that's apparently why there was the rumors that that's why they were running the Vegas NXT shows earlier this year, was to kind of see what type of draw it would get, so they could see how to set up the shows in there and like filming for wrestling and things like that. That was the rumor. That was
Vegas is, whether we like it or not, it is a captive audience because people are on the strip looking for things to do 24/7. It's
right.
So in terms of like for a wrestling show that was there all the time like that, and it's something that's pretty, well known. That there's a ton of brothers and sisters that are going to Vegas, and they're like, and I'm going to see WWE while I'm there. Like,
right.
I mean,
yeah. I get it from that standpoint, but yeah, the PC is on the other hand, the PC is something they've poured a lot of money into as part of the Full Sail stuff, and a lot of the talent lives there, and so you've got to factor in that cost.
I know they're saying as a cost saving measure, but it would be
in the beginning. It's not going to be when you have to pay.
It would fundamentally be a cost saving measure to leave it in Florida because of the fact that it's set up. It's already on that low tax rate. You have your deals with all the people that you have. You have all your politicians or your business people that in your area. Like, it doesn't seem like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons for both reasons.
For me, I wouldn't economically. I would say no, but that's just me.
Well, and then you have to pay. Even if you're not paying. So even if you don't pay your wrestlers to move, then you've got all your staff that you have to pay to move and relocate. And I'm sure it's a decent amount of people that work down there at the NXT. It takes a lot of people to make NXT run. So I'm sure there's some pay, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, maybe it's not, or perhaps they looked into it and just decided, you know what, let's just stay where we are for all the reasons you mentioned. So maybe they, who knows, but I guess there's two conflicting stories out there. Fightful says no. Voices of Wrestling says yes. I have heard they are, but again, maybe they were just looking into it to see if it was a viable option, and they were like, you know what, let's not do that. So
I know that Dave mentioned it in the Observer at some point because it was talked about, but again, we'll see.
Lady B says that all WWE salaries could be made public through FOIA. Request. Would love to see Thurston do a deep dive based on recent conversations. That, yeah, for sure.
Guy's pretty busy.
Yeah, he is. And then this one says NXT has sold pretty well for there are 2 live events in Chicago and St. Louis. I think they will start touring more in 2025. Well, and now they've got the CW deal as well. So, which is where those 2 events are coming from, the Chicago and the St. Louis events. I think those are October 1st and October 8th. They do have CM Punk will be on the Chicago date. Randy Orton will be on the St. Louis date. They've got Julia coming in. They've got Stephanie Vacker. They've got Delta. So those certain things can certainly factor in to that. And so I could see, potentially going back on tour, at least with their PLEs like they used to do for their takeovers. That could certainly be the case, and that would probably be more cost effective than moving to Vegas. Just
I don't know.
do
That
a
seems
show.
weird. We'll see.
Lady B said, well, I love Swerve. Get your bag. I couldn't help but wonder what women are getting paid in comparison. I do know Mercedes is the highest paid woman for sure, but I don't, and perhaps it's out there and I just am not, and I don't remember seeing. I don't know if there's been a breakdown of who get, how women are paid in respect to men. And then now that Mercedes is here and she's the top paid woman, once contracts start coming due, will they, how will that transfer?
Well, I mean, in the NFL, Tony has to like make that stuff transparent because that's how that functions. And
Right.
the NFL works with a salary cap, and you have so much stuff. And again, like Brad made the point earlier, is that he runs 2 major sports franchises. And again, with the NFL salary cap, for example, is incredibly hard to work with. Sometimes it can be very damaging to markets depending on what money you have, and so but because wrestling is wrestling, and it's always been a behind the scenes and an independent contractor and things like that.
Well, then you've got the stockholders, and WWE has the answer to stockholders where AEW does not. Again, like Lady B pointed out, AEW is privately held, so that certainly, can affect things as well.
I mean, I guess it just depends on. I think it's important to put the stories out that they're getting well paid and not necessarily giving me their salary, because it's not in my business. So,
I mean, some people can argue that people should publicly talk about their salaries no matter where they work, because a lot of people are underpaid. And so that should go for wrestling as well, because we know how much NFL players get made per year. We know baseball, we know all these contracts, what they get paid per year.
And that's an everyday discussion.
We're holding people, accountable. And even in your day-to-day life, you want to make sure that you are getting paid, depending on your work. So
No, they don't want you talking about that.
No, I know so some companies have strict policies that if you are hurt, and I've worked for companies like that. I have worked for companies like that where if you
they can put it in their thingy, but it's actually illegal.
If you are heard talking about it, like, you can get punished for it.
Which, I mean, if you had the reason that companies do that is because they know that the most average individuals don't have the ability to go get a lawyer to fight that, because that's patently illegal. That under the Federal Labor Relations, and under union busting, workplace discrimination. I'm allowed to talk to I'm allowed by law to talk to my colleagues and peers about what we make. They just want you to believe, and they scare you into, and because you don't usually, because you are making $10 an hour for working 8 billion hours a week with no benefits. You don't have the money to go get a lawyer if they punish you for talking about that stuff. So
and I will go back, and even though I'm glad Swerve is getting paid and other wrestlers are getting paid, I still believe that pro wrestling needs unions.
I agree with you, but that's got to come from the wrestlers. And
I know it does. I know.
I don't know if that culture will ever exist for them, which is sad.
And Cody talked about doing a union, and then he backed right off of that after about a year or so of being an EVP. He quit talking about it, but he was very pro union in the beginning.
And then the person that was really pro union ended up being one of the biggest abusers under speaking out, so that didn't help. And
right. Yeah. So at some point, I would love to see pro wrestling in general just have unions everywhere.
Just like every other sport.
Especially for independent talent, because independent talent are, they work multiple jobs. They bust their ass, get paid $40.
We should all have collective bargaining ability, but certainly in sports. I mean, why does this sport get excluded? They want it to be sports, but not. I don't know. I'm glad, and I hope that Tony's seems to be treating it more like a regular sports league, but that's a choice. It's not mandated or something. So until
I hope it leads to more wrestlers getting paid.
I hope that as the kids are growing up, in the newer kids that are coming, they're younger, that understand the value of that.
Yeah,
we might maybe see.
Right.
Because it would actually help other places like festivals.
Yeah.
It would really if wrestling did that, that's not a very far jump for Renaissance festivals. And protecting performers and staff at those places is really important too.
Yeah. Lady B says that the hate that Swerve got this week is alarming, yet not a complete surprise. It's when people showed their true feelings. His contract as historical wrestlers of color. It's a big deal. Yeah, 100%. And yeah. And
yeah,
a lot
I'm not
of people,
going to say that I didn't catch a hint of racism on some of the arguments.
I mean, somebody. Yeah, there was a lot of that.
I don't want to get too far. That's
same
my
thing with. It's the same thing with Mercedes as well.
Not my lane, but
yeah,
I caught a pretty big whiff on both situations.
But certainly something that we should not overlook.
Pretty stinky,
even though it's not necessarily our conversation to have. It definitely is something that we.
But it's my conversation.
We know it's happening. We see it.
It
should be acknowledged. But it's I saw it too, Lady B. I think a lot of us did. We saw some of the comments that were happening.
We caught that whiff of racism on the.
Yeah, I mean, and there was even some yesterday. There was a tweet. I don't remember exactly what was said, but they basically tried to compare Swerve and Kofi without saying the point that they were trying to get at, which was. Yeah, they were making, and the person who they said it to, I don't remember if it was. I can't remember.
Expletives deleted.
I can't remember who the comments directed at because Nikki saw it too. But they basically, he was like, you're basically saying this without saying the obvious.
And tell me you're racist without saying you're racist.
Yeah, they're like,
one of those things.
We see what you're getting at here.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, but not shocking in the least that is coming up. And it is a huge deal that a person of color is getting paid like that, especially in the wrestling business, who have decades of not putting wrestlers or not paying and not even making them champions, and forget pay, making them champions. And
well, I mean, Swerve is like a legit member of that staff. He is a real, like, he's Swerve. He's in him, like you said, we talked earlier, Hangman. Like, that's one of the best stories they have going right now. Like,
yeah. Oh, that's right. It was Trevor Dame that somebody said. That's right. That they. We're talking about basically comparing Swerve and Kofi, and he was like, I mean, you're saying it without saying it.
Oh, that guy.
No, Trevor wasn't saying anything wrong. He was pointing out.
He was pointing it out. Got it.
You're saying.
Got it.
I get what you're saying without saying it. I see what you're trying to do here, and basically,
good then.
Yeah, he caught him out on it.
Good.
But yeah, so I mean, we did kind of talk about the all-out build. It's been good. We've got some really solid matches. We obviously, if you missed the beginning of the show or tuned in later, we will be live on Saturday for the pre-show. We're still trying to figure out the times because I also have to help out Wrestling Inc. as well, and we're trying to figure out what time
that work for real.
Yeah, they were like, can you make sure you're available for like some of these, because I typically cover Collision on Saturday, so it's my normal shift. But he was like, can you like try not to go to wrestling shows on these 3 dates? We're gonna need you. And I was like, luckily Ashe doesn't have any shows. And luckily it looks like DPW is coming to Charlotte on there's not a pay-per-view happening, so hopefully. Sweet. But yeah, so so I've just got to figure out the time, so I got to talk to Mel about that. But like I said before, if you subscribe to the Fight Game Media channel, turn your bell notification on, you'll see us when we pop on Saturday. But we'll definitely make sure you're also following us on social media at Power Bombshells on Twitter and on Instagram, along with our personal ones. We'll tweet about a time when we have nailed that down, but we'll definitely be here on Saturday to do our pre-show. I'm excited for it because this card has already stacked. Like, we have somebody, I think it was Lyric, said that all of these matches have like a floor of 4-star of being at least.
Yeah, there's some really, after like being a little concerned about these pay-per-views, I'm actually like, really, it's like, yay. Okay.
Yeah, because we've got, so obviously we have Swerve, Hangman in a cage. We've got Mercedes versus Sheeta for the TBS championship. I saw LaRon ask way back in the comments about Mariah May and who she faces and if she's going to have a match. I assume that gets made after Wednesday because they made her match with Nyla Rose, because we've talked, Nyla Rose almost always faces the brand new champion. I think it happened like, I think the only person maybe was Thunder Rosa, or they wrestled like it wasn't her very first match, but the very first match for Champions 10 almost is always Nyla. And so we're getting Nyla versus Mariah on Wednesday. So I assume that her challenger, she'll either make the challenge or a challenger will appear and will make the match. That's my guess, especially because we're doing a short build. Because last night when they did when they first announced that women's 4-way, they didn't say it was for a number one contendership. They didn't say that until the match started. They were like, or no, earlier in the show, not when it started, when they announced it was the main event, and they were like, we'll take a look at each woman that's involved, which I really appreciated them taking the time last night to talk about each woman. They played some clips, talked about them, to build them up and build up that main event. And they got like 14 minutes, because I was a little concerned because there were 2 unadvertised matches last night. The Bang Bang Gang match was not advertised pre-show, and neither was the big 8-person match. I think it was 8 people, the one that had Turbo Floyd in it and Top Flight. That one, that was unannounced too. And I was like, and I had forgot about Commander and Kyle Fletcher. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, Commander and Buddy Matthews, rather. And I was like, I was like, oh my God. I was like, these women are going to get 12 minutes or like less than 10 minutes. And then I was like, oh wait, they usually do the overrun. And that ended up being like, I think it was 13 and a half minutes, 14 and a half minutes. So more time than I expected. So I appreciated that. And I liked them show the women that they showcase in it. And so now we've got Serena Deeb back, and maybe we can start telling some stories about her again. And Queen Aminata's back on time.
Yes.
Lady V says it does see her Top Flight giving Spirit Halloween vibes. A little. Like, I like Layla Gray's gear. I think it's cute on her. I like the pants part of Top Flight's gear. I like the pants portion. Not so much, and I get it. I know the name's Top Flight. Darius just got his pilot's license a few months ago, so they're not completely just making this gimmick up. Like, Darius has legitimately got his pilot's license.
That's so awesome.
But on the other hand, it just feels like, and I don't know. And then I kind of like that. I kind of like that Leo didn't have matching gear, that Leo was just kind of still just Leo, like, I guess. And my assumption is that when Leo is in singles matches, he will probably just wear his normal gear, and then when he's in Top Flight adjacent matches, he will wear this gear. But yeah, I'm in a little in the middle on these. I'm not completely sold on it, and I get it feels like they just put Layla with them because they didn't know what to do with her. But then on the other hand, they've been feuding with the infantry, who has Trisha Dora, so it made sense for them to have a woman, but they already had Action Andretti, so I was like, well, is the infantry going to get a third? And now they have Leo Rush, so I was like, they're kind of undoing that part. So yeah, I'm not crazy about their gear. I do like that Layla, I know it's kind of dumb, but when Layla Hirsch will sit on the apron and she gives them clearance so that they can do their dives, I kind of think it's kind of dumb, but I kind of like it too.
Kind of campy, but it's kind
of it's kind of, we'll see how it plays out, and who knows how long they'll be wearing. But it's funny because like you have actually Andretti, who was with them like in England and was just like in his regular gear, and so was Leo. And then now I was like, well, at least they look good as a unit. Like they're all on the same page as a unit. But yeah, it is given Spirit Halloween.
That was sure. Perfect call. Nailed it.
But yeah, what did I say? Did I not say Layla Gray? Did I say something else and not realize it? Did I say Layla Hirsch and you not did. Gray? Because that is certainly,
yes, that's it. That's what happened.
Is that what I said? And didn't
that's what happened. It's okay. It's totally understandable.
I saw Layla Gray and her
I know
gear and didn't even realize.
She's got so much wrestling going on, people.
And normally I try not to. I get that, but yeah. So then I was like, wait a minute, I didn't even realize I said it. But yes, that is correct. Layla Gray is the one who is with Top Flight. Layla Hirsch wrestles solo, and who I would like to have seen in BCC potentially as a one. But I'm very excited for Marina. But in the beginning, we were talking about women. But so back to this card, we also have what else is we've got? I guess Danielson Perry has not been made official, but I assume that gets made official
Sounds
this
like
week.
it's gonna be.
I assume Darby John Moxley gets made official this week as well. I don't know if they're gonna do GYV versus Young Bucks this fast because I feel like GYV will be the ones to take the titles off of Young Bucks. I think that's why the Young Bucks retained is because, well, I mean, I guess they're keeping the elite.
Plus, I'm sure that if he hasn't already, and I'm just not remembering that Chris Jericho has weaseled his way onto the card somehow at this point. So
he always will.
I mean, he'll always be on there.
Hopefully,
so
they keep him.
Expect a learning tree match.
I did laugh though when Tony announced that match for Wednesday, that 8-man, and it was Jericho was in it, and they got mad because Hook was in it too, and everybody was like, "We thought you were keeping Hook away from Jericho. Like, why are you doing this?" And Tony was basically like, "I mean, I don't know, just watch the match. Maybe it'll be good." Like he was like, basically was like, just watch the match. Maybe it'll be fine. But I think he underestimated how much people do not want to see Hook and Jericho anymore. Like, we're done with that story. He came out with his dad's music, which the heartbeat was really, really cool. I loved that they did that, and that they had Taz do the Taz mission while he's locking in the Red Rum, and that they finally got that title away from Jericho. And then they come back Wednesday and put him right back in an 8-man. And I was like, please don't do that. I think Jermaine is right that they do GYV versus FTR because GYV has attacked FTR twice. And then Friday, because Collision is Friday night as well. So we've got a 3-hour block on Friday. Collision's 8 to 10 because I'll be live covering it. Yeah, that's last night. I was like, so do you want me on Collision coverage instead of SmackDown coverage on Friday? And they were like, yes. So I will be doing live coverage of Collision, and then Rampage will be at regular time. So MXM challenged House of Black for Friday. I don't know if this is Collision or Rampage, and that promo was hilarious. He said that they're gonna do he said they were gonna be House of Blacked as well.
Yeah.
That promo, their promos are wild, but God, I love them. They're so funny. Yeah, Brad is right. They are setting up Roddy versus Hook. Yeah, that seems like be where they're going. But please get him away from Jericho. I feel like there's like a couple other matches that are official that I have forgotten about, but we will go over all of them. Oh, we have Chris versus Willow in the Chicago Street Fight, which CMLL will not sanction. Therefore, the title is not on the line in this match, which I kind of figured was going to happen because I was like, CMLL is not going to just be letting that title be defended on AEW all the time. I think it's just going to be here.
They're going to be.
I mean, I know they also are just working with what they could. They obviously were not expecting Stephanie to leave them so suddenly and not fulfill her dates, and so they just were like, Willow's awesome, put it on her. And so they're like, wait a minute, we got to figure out how she's going to defend this. So no, she's not going to defend her title on, but I hope I'm really looking forward to that one. I think that's going to be great. I loved Willow and Ishii having very similar gear, and the pictures that they took together after.
I love those two.
So good. I told Nikki, I said, I'm not ready for Ishii to go back to Japan.
Me either. And I know it's getting close to that time because we're going to get to and you'll want him on Wrestle Kingdom and stuff.
Right. Well, of course.
I'm just, he can come stay with us anytime he wants to.
Yeah. He had,
I mean, for him not being in a G1, it was like we were all freaking out. But then at the end of the whole thing, it actually ended up working out better because
he got 2 G1 matches this week. Him and Hangman had a G1 match.
He knows how to put on a match no matter what he's doing.
Him and Kyle Fletcher had a G1 match last night. I was like, I like these New Japan matches we are having, these G1 matches we're having. And I told Nikki, I was like, I feel like Kyle Fletcher's auditioning for next year's G1.
They need to push that guy.
And again, watching that match, I was like, what are they going to do when Mark Davis is cleared? What are they going to do with Aussie Open? What are we doing? Are we going to push Mark?
Kyle Fletcher is really good. And he is really, he's like hitting on all cylinders right now.
He is. And you have Takeshita doing the same thing. And Takeshita, I tweeted the other night, Takeshita doesn't need to lose any more matches this year. We only got 3 months to go. Let that match.
He just had the greatest G1 ever. Like, he just made, like, just do some fun stuff with him.
Yeah. I mean, that 4-way, if you have not seen Rampage, and I know that Rampage is not usually, you know, appointment
Super
watching
fun.
for some people. If you are able to watch it on demand, or if it's on your DVR, watch that main event. It
did end up being really,
it was
unexpectedly awesome.
Like, I saw it and I was really excited. It's because I love all 4 of them. It was Leo Rush, Beast Mortos, Commander, and Takeshita. And it was just like, and I already, like, when the match was announced, I was like, I'm gonna love this match because I love all 4, but I'm gonna need a singles match between Takeshita and our tribal chief. And then I watched that match and I was like, oh, I absolutely need a singles match after they were like trying to, they were trying to one up each other. And as I said, they were trying to match each other's freak, which they did incredibly well. But Leo and Commander kind of did the same thing. Like that, go out of your way to watch it. It was a lot of fun.
Good. It was. I did see that one because I was home and we were watching it.
Yes, and Lady B said, I need Ishii and Willow versus Okada and Mercedes before he leaves.
What a great idea.
I saw people saying that too after the Okada and Mercedes thing.
They finally had an interaction, and it's been since they were in Japan together where she was trying to, like, get him to do stuff and everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, no, he had that one. Oh, yeah, because he walked up that one time after she walked off and he was fanning himself. But then this time he saved her from being hit on by Private Party.
Right.
Brad said that Ishii did a top rope. He sure did do a top rope Frankensteiner, and it was incredible. And Hangman dropped him on his head on the apron, but then Ishii like returned the favor later and dropped him. And I was like, oh, this is a fucking G1 match is what this is. This is.
I love that guy so much.
Nikki said, I wish Ishii would win a few more matches. I feel like I'm watching PWX regular talent against the big name wrestler. Yeah, that's what PWX would do. They would bring in big name wrestlers, and then the local talent, the PWX wrestler would get the win all the time. I mean, and I get with Kyle Fletcher, and you don't want Hangman Page losing heading into All Out. Like, I get it, but yeah. And then I think it was Lucha Blog said everybody was worried about Ishii missing the G1, and then he came over here and still had 20 matches in this short amount of time. So he basically had his own G1.
He did. He took over the summer in America. He had Ishii.
So we had Summer of Saber.
We had Tourney Ishii.
We had Summer of Saber in New Japan, but here we had Summer of Ishii. Here. Jermaine said I watched it on the DVR because the match came on at the same time as Mercedes' match with Momo. Yeah, and I didn't get to see. I haven't seen Capital Collision because I was on SmackDown coverage and I was having to do all that, and so I have not seen Capital Collision. I've heard it was a really great show, and I do want to bring this up really quick. And I meant to say this. I meant to say this earlier, and USVA guy is here and says, "Did everyone enjoy Momo and Mercedes?" I have heard nothing but good nothing but good things about that. I have heard some people I saw a few people say that they think it's her second best match she's had since leaving WWE or since she has returned. But even though I love the Willow match and I loved the second Willow match and then the match with Stephanie Vacker, like, those are two women's matches of the year for me. But I'm really interested. I heard that a lot of people were talking about Momo and Watanabe and how great she is, and that the match was really good. But so Dina is my friend. That was her first wrestling show ever. She was super excited because she got to see. So not only did she get to see Mustafa and Mercedes, who were two of her favorites, she got to see GYV, and she made signs for them for Mina. she made a sign that says, "Hi, Mina, I'm Dina." And then she made a sign for Mustafa, but they told her signs were too big and she couldn't bring them in. So she took pictures in the parking lot of her holding up her signs, and she tagged Mina and Mustafa, and they both saw it because they both liked the tweet.
Cool.
So I'm glad they at least saw that. But so Raphael, who's my editor at Daily DDT, was also at Capital Collision, and so he was saying Mercedes versus Momo was great, but he said that he didn't expect Mercedes to be so polarizing. And he said in his section where he was at, there were a lot of people who were booing her. And he said it was interesting, like a lot of black men were cheering for her and a lot of the children were cheering for Mercedes. And I saw a video of her doing the CEO dance with a little girl in the front row. But then he said that a woman near him drove from Boston and said that she doesn't like Mercedes. And then he said that there were people in his section who left during Mercedes's match because they don't like her, that they left the show. And I said, was any of it like transportation? And he was like, nope, transportation runs till 1 a.m. So he was like, people were leaving because of her in his section. So I was asking Dina, I was like, did you have that, did you see that same thing? And she said she heard some people booing her, but she said she didn't, in her eye line, she didn't see anybody leave from her section. And so she said, but there were some, like they would do the Mercedes and then somebody would yell sucks. She was like, I mean, that's a typical heel thing that they would do. And so he said it, and Raphael said it reminded him of people who used to pay to boo Floyd Mayweather in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
Like people would, and he said it almost feels like that with Mercedes is so good that people boo her because she's good. And he was like, it was just really interesting to see that, like, and he said that some people were saying that Lio Rush and Gabe Kidd should have main evented over Mercedes. And he was like, I don't agree with that. But he said there were people in his section that said that. So he was just talking about how it's really interesting to see, like, how people react to her and how some people absolutely love her. And then some people just do not like her for, whatever reason. And he said he was just kind of surprised. And so I don't know if she's getting that reaction to AEW shows. I talked to a couple of friends. I had a friend who went to the Greenville, South Carolina show, said she got a really big pop. And then a friend saw her at the Winston-Salem, I think is where they were at, like the following week. And he said she got a pretty big reaction in the beginning. And so it was like, it's just kind of interesting how the feedback that she gets. And I think that Mercedes is just that type of person. And she's very good at when the crowd turns on her. She's very, like the Stephanie Vacker match, she's very good about playing into it. And doing what she needs to do and helping Stephanie get over. Stephanie obviously was getting over on her own, but she like even played into it even more with it. And then Nikki said that for people who don't know or don't remember, Samantha saw someone call Mortos the tribal chief, and it's Bull. Just to clarify for people who didn't know, yes. I mean, I was sure he could wrestle Roman Reigns, but yes, the tribal chief as Beast Mortos is who. If we are referring to AEW, then that is who I am talking about.
The tribal chief. Yes, I'll make sure to I will put the emphasis. I will put the emphasis on America. We'll put the emphasis on the bull next time because you can't say Black Truth in America.
No, we can't. And let me say, I don't know how TNA fumbled that man the way that they did, but good Lord, he won 0 matches in TNA. That's insane to me. 0 matches. He was out here, and he was.
I told everybody that if Tony Khan
in TNA too.
I told everyone if Tony Khan screws up Ricochet, we riot.
I don't think he will. I think Ricochet may take a little time to get out of the WWE habit, which most of them do have that little bit. It takes them a little bit of time to get out. It even took Nigel time to get out of
definitely
on his commentary. In the beginning, I had a hard time with him because he was mean. He was
rough. He had a struggle. He had to learn to be with less high-strung people,
and then he finally settled into it. He's done incredible.
A really nice job.
And of course he got that amazing. God, I loved him being in the Casino Gauntlet match. Like, I lost it. Nikki lost that. Is not who I expected. I felt like it was, hey, sorry we couldn't give you Danielson, but we still want to give you your Wembley moment. And he got it with the ROH guys. Like, he had it with Kyle O'Reilly, and you had Orange Cassidy, and you had Zack Sabre Jr., which I was so excited to see Zach obviously in that match. Like, I really love that Gauntlet match. It was a ton of fun.
It was fun.
It was a lot of fun. I loved that match.
It turned out to be like one of my favorite things on the show, actually.
Me too.
Because it was just, they were really into it. They were all into it. Like, it's hard to do multi-man matches.
I mean, my only issue is I was a little annoyed that they put Roddy in it because Roddy was already on the 0 hour, and I'm like, you couldn't. You've got plenty of talent. Like, you couldn't find somebody else, and then, and also that they didn't bring Scorpio Sky back, and I was like, well, maybe because of Ricochet's debut, maybe they wanted to separate the return and give Scorpio his own thing, perhaps. So we did get Scorpio.
I mean, there's another pay-per-view coming in a week.
Right. So it's like, perhaps they'll maybe we get Scorpio on Saturday. Maybe we get him, leading up to Wrestle Dream or something like that. I hope we're getting him soon. We did get him in that private party segment the Friday before, the Rampage before All In. We did get him in that. So it's like, hopefully they're getting ready to bring him back. But that was my only thing. I was like, and I say that as somebody who likes Roddy a lot, but I was just like, you couldn't have found anybody else to put in that spot. Like, it had to be Roddy. But Brad says that Mercedes versus Momo was outstanding. He gave it a 4.5 stars. This is the top women's match this year. And USVA guy said it was interesting. It got a lot of feedback overall. I hope I've heard the show was great. I hope that you guys had.
I heard nothing but good things because I saw, because I was watching Rampage, but I saw people tweeting about it. I saw Jeremy and Steven were going to be on afterwards. So I
forgot that I knew that the Matt Vandegrift and I forget who his opponent was. I knew that was a pre-show. For whatever reason, I didn't realize that Mina and I don't know how to pronounce. Is it Hanako? It's Hana. I haven't heard it pronounced since I don't want to miss. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. They wrestled Trish Adora and Viva Van, and I heard the tag match was pretty good. Raphael was mad because he got there late, so he missed Mina Shirakawa, and he said, "So my night was ruined." And he was like, "I'm just kidding." He was like, "I got to see Mercedes," and he was like, "The show was great overall," but he was really sad. But then I saw that. So my friend Dina, that was her very first wrestling show ever. And she said it was incredible. She loved the matches. She got to see, she was obviously on cloud 9 getting to see Mustafa because he's her favorite. And then she got GYV and Mercedes on top of it. What I understood from her, she had an incredible time. And she really enjoyed, because New Japan is not something she follows closely. She knows who certain wrestlers are and things like that, especially because we talk about them and she's seen clips and things like that. But that was her first really big exposure. And I know that she had a really great time. Lady B says that Nigel should have won. That's my hot take.
I kind of wanted that. That was my bold prediction on Twitter, but
I would not have been mad at that. It is interesting that it's
great to see him.
It's interesting that it's Christian. Apparently Christian was supposed to win it last year. And I guess that's the story, is that's why he won this year. But it was very interesting that we saw Killswitch come out as Luchasaurus.
It's Luchasaurus.
But then he still helped Christian win. So it's like we are eventually getting that story, because, he's being disrespectful. When they had the trios titles, he gave the title to Shayna, to Mother Wayne. And then we also had the Luchasaurus would have had he would have had the match won. He was going for the titles and Christian stopped him, and now they're not champions because of which. Clearly that's the story that they've been telling, but it seems like Luchasaurus is getting closer and closer. And so when he came out as Luchasaurus, it's like, wait a minute. And then of course so that'll be fun to see how that turns out. Brad says that the women's tag match was really fun. Mina apparently has moved to the U.S. Oh, interesting. I knew she was doing more wrestling here, but I didn't know that she had apparently moved here. USVA guy says, for some reason, we were having fans who have watched AEW and WWE, but wanted to watch our first show. Or watch our show first, rather. I'm sorry. I read that wrong.
Weird.
Yeah, I can see. These New Japan Strong shows have always delivered.
They've been good. They're really good.
They've been really good.
I mean, I haven't regretted buying a single one.
No, I haven't either. I haven't bought this one yet, but I need to. But I know it's because Charlotte does, Ashe is doing its own thing and is rebuilding itself, and they don't have PWX, so we don't have a show for them to piggyback off of. But I really hope that we get New Japan back in Charlotte at some point. because that strong show that I went to, and the strong show that I went to was not the current way that they're doing things. It was more because it was a strong taping from back when they were doing those shows. And I loved it because I loved strong. But we weren't getting that type of show because now we are getting the like these incredible, not that those matches weren't good, but like they're getting the bigger names brought in and things like that. Like I saw the thing that Mustafa said he wants Haramu next year in Best of Super Junior. So that makes me believe that Mustafa is going to be more involved with New Japan next year, which I mean, I guess he could still sign with AEW and still be involved with New Japan, but it sounds like New Japan is his focus, which I'm really excited about. I hope that's where he's going because, and I can't wait to see Mustafa versus Haramu too. Thank you. That's he said, by the way, Brian says this hi to all the PWX fans. He did a great job in production. Good. So for those of you who are unaware, PWX was my local promotion I went to for 11 years. And then it's defunct now, but Brian and Patrick, Brian owned it. Patrick was involved. Patrick did a lot of the booking and things like that. Both of them are involved in the New Japan America shows. So I'm very glad to hear that. I miss PWX very much because it was my home for 11 years. There was a 4-year period where Nikki and I did not miss a single show. We were at every single one. We were at the Pure shows on top of that. Like we just didn't miss. So I miss them. So I'm glad that they're doing well. And I'm glad that they're still involved with the New Japan stuff. Jermaine said you could have had Roddy off and put hologram, and that's like, yeah, I was kind of surprised that maybe they didn't want to do hologram and Ricochet.
That would be cool.
But hologram, I really wish that he had been involved. That match last night, Hologram and Beast Mortos are becoming like Collision MVPs. They are putting out bangers. And last night was really funny because he was teaming with Kyle O'Reilly and Orange Cassidy. And I missed it happen live because I was getting my article ready, but I saw a clip later. They were touching hologram to make sure that he wasn't an actual hologram and he was a real person. Which is a very on-brand thing for the two of them. So
yes, that's lovely. I loved it. It was
bless
so
those
good.
Guys. It was so funny. But yeah, hologram and Beast Mortos just out here putting bangers on all they're definitely becoming the Collision MVP. Lady B said, I found Ricochet's fan interaction on Twitter after All In very interesting. It kind of gave some insight on if WWE wrestlers are bringing fans over when they leave. Yeah, I saw a little bit of it because I saw his interaction with Kyle Fletcher, obviously leading up to their match, but I saw some other stuff. So it's very interesting how it does give some interesting insight there. So that, yeah. Brad says that I'm thinking the story is over with Killswitch. They teased this tourney, ended up helping Christian. That seems to be the payoff since Christian outworks everyone. That's fair. Perhaps that is where they're going with that because I don't know exactly what they're going to do with that because I mean, I guess it wouldn't hurt Christian to lose to Luchasaurus, but Luchasaurus is probably not going to go over. And then what do you do? So maybe that was it. Jermaine says that I wonder who Mercedes' next New Japan opponent will be. I'm trying to remember. I think Mina will be her opponent, but at some point, but I think that's going to be at either Wrestle Kingdom or Wrestle Dynasty. I think Mercedes holds both. I mentioned it last week. I think Mercedes goes into Wrestle Dynasty with both titles still, definitely the strong title, and I think that she will drop it in Japan. Mm-hmm. They could do Wrestle Kingdom and bring her back because they were having some women's matches and they dropped off, so they may just hold it because I thought maybe she would perhaps, if they do it, depending on what Wrestle Kingdom card looks like, obviously, that maybe Mercedes retains at Wrestle Kingdom, is challenged for Wrestle Dynasty and loses at Wrestle Dynasty, or they just skip Wrestle Kingdom altogether. And I think that could be potentially, well, it depends on Mina's contract because I know Stardom is, well, that's the strong title, not the IWGP title is the one that stays in Stardom. So because Jeremy and Steven were talking about that last week about Mayu Iwatani because there's a rumor that she might go to Marigold, but then I think it was USVA guy was saying that but she could end up staying with Stardom, and so it'll be kind of interesting how that plays out. So I don't know who her next opponent will be, but I feel like her and Mina is gonna happen at some point, and I feel like I could see Mina being the one to dethrone her. I could see that being the case. Brad said that Orange tweeted out yesterday he thinks he's a real person and not a hologram.
Oh, well, thank goodness.
Good. Well, they did if he's not a real person, they did a really good job wrestling with a hologram last night.
Yeah, seriously. They are good. They're even better than we thought.
Yes. USVA guy says he also has something special for both of us. I have a New Japan t-shirt for Sam and a New Japan hat for Mel. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Nice. We appreciate that so much.
I can't wait to wear it.
Yes.
I'm so
your gimmick lives.
I love it. Oh, I always love new.
Thank you.
I love new hats.
So much.
Thank you. That's so nice. You guys are the best. We really appreciate you guys always hanging out,
and not just because you hook us up with stuff.
Not just because that's a
very nice
gesture.
Unexpected bonus, and we appreciate it. But truly,
we truly do. Actually, it sounds like Brad had a good vacation, and I'm glad.
Yes, and it sounds like and part of the reason we are going, like, we probably could have wrapped this up like 30 minutes ago, but we enjoy having conversations with you guys. So if you're here, we're here too. So we appreciate it. But Brad said there's also an NJPW X Stardom show coming up in November. They could have Mercedes over to face someone from Stardom. They're like Azumi. Oh, USVA guy says the strong title will be defended in Boston. Of course, you have to have Mercedes defended.
Oh, that
in
makes
Boston.
sense. That
totally
makes
have to do that there.
Sure.
So that makes sense. Yeah. So I really got to check out this Capital Collision show, especially now that G1 is over. Nikki said that she's jealous of me and she's gonna steal it.
Well, that's a sibling thing. I was talking to another sibling about this yesterday. It's
funny because we saw this we actually saw it from Lo shared it in her story. Somebody has a shirt of China, and it's different pictures of her, and I was looking and I was like, oh man, that shirt would be awesome. I'd love to get it. And also I have a friend she's a friend that's a really big fan of China's, and I knew she would want it. And it's so funny because I screenshot it to send to her because I saw it late and was going to send it to her the next morning, and I sent it to her in a text, and Nikki said she screenshot it too to send to her the next day. But like, we were looking through there, they have a Jimmy King shirt from Ready to Rumble, which Nikki and I love that damn movie.
Wow.
They have a Jimmy King shirt, and I was like, wait, as much as I want that China shirt, I want the Jimmy King shirt. So we were talking about, even though Nikki and I are different shirt sizes, we were like, well, maybe, but I was like, they're men's shirts. So it's like, maybe we'll get one China and we'll get one of Jimmy King, and then we'll just share it, and we'll just have to take turns wearing them. Because there are some shirts that we have that are exactly the same as far as wrestling shirts go. And I would not be mad if we both had China shirts, but I was like, oh man, I need that Jimmy King shirt. I love that movie. That's
awesome.
It's crazy. Jermaine says that if Mina is the one who defeats Mercedes for the New Japan Strong title, that could set up a match for them in the TBS title. Yeah, I think there's some other implications that they could have with that. Because I was like, Mercedes, I feel like she'll just have those both. If not both titles, I assume both titles. But if not both titles, I assume the Strong title going into the Japan show, because that's the first one they're doing. I could see that being a thing. But yeah, so unless comments pop up anytime quickly, we're comments slightly come up on a delay for us, but so I think we're gonna wrap this up unless there's anything else that you need to add.
I'm good. Remember, 1:00 we'll let you know, but it will be on Saturday next week, not on Sunday.
Yes, and I assume
the time.
I assume since we do the pre show that there will probably be another post show after. I assume Kevin Ely will do another one, but don't quote us on that. We will let you know for sure. We'll obviously retweet it, but we will make sure to talk about it on Saturday. But regardless, subscribe to our channel anyway. We've got the Dynamite show on Wednesday. We have Speaking of Strong Style on Thursday. There's the 5-Star Joshi show. If you go to wherever you listen to podcasts, there's the Wrap, which is the Raw show or WWE show. There's all kinds of stuff. So definitely make sure that you are subscribed for all kinds of wrestling content. And we will see you on Saturday to get you hyped for All Out, because I'm already hyped for it. So we'll be extra hype.
Extra hype. Okay. Have a good weekend.